We got old rules in a new day scene. Same big principles, different machine. The how keeps changing, tech moves fast. So we check the settings, cut the deadwood past. Special vote stacking like a tower of bricks. Lane enrollments, doing overtime tricks. Used to be 2 weeks, now it's 3. If we do nothing longer, you'll see. So we tighten the timing, smooth the lines. Start the process earlier, read the signs. 13 days before the big show starts. Get your name right where the roll book charts. 13 days, 13 days. Get enrolled before the deadline gates. 13 days, 13 days. Is it speed or democracy at stake? No treats at the ballot, no chips, no tea, no freebies near the box, keep it clean. 13 days, 13 days. Tell me who wins when the rules all change. Auto updates, moving addresses along. Go data, keeping details strong. Roll stays current between each race. Less last minute chaos, faster pace. Advanced voting, 12-day run. Make it formal, job gets done. No costly letters sent by post. More modern system, cut the toast. And prisoners sentenced, no vote while inside. Consequences land on the other side. Serious offending held to account.
And welcome.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Creative Ways the Government's going to Screw Up Your Christmas.
I know, and I think it's ironic of like you've got to roll 13 days in advance, just like the 13 days of Christmas?
Yeah, or is it? How many days of Christmas? I don't keep track. When you do as much reading as I do, every day becomes a blur. All the bills look the same.
So what day is today?
I don't know. 3 days out till Christmas. Or is it 4 days out? Shit, it's 4 days out. Okay, just check the calendar, guys. I do sleep.
Yeah. I'm just wondering,
Sometimes.
you starting to get into the sleep patterns that I have.
Oh, sometimes I don't go to bed until like 6 a.m.
Yeah. For those who are wondering about that song, that's just a snippet of the whole version of it, but it is breaking down of the transcripts for the bill we're covering tonight. And I told Sonu to theme it like the Grinch is trying to steal Christmas, because so Kiwibirb has actually brought up on here. It's the 12 days of Christmas, not 13 days of Christmas.
I got a little secret. I actually had that song on mute while I was doing other things.
Yeah.
So I don't know how the song goes. How did the song go? What was the song about, chat?
They'll tell us. Now we do have a bit of a goal tonight. Now, if we can get another $40 worth of super chats in by the end of tonight's show, we will be able to get our first super chat payment paid out by the 20th of January.
Oh God, what does that involve me doing? What do you want me to do for super chats? For every super chat, I will do one push-up. How about that?
On camera, or will we have to get a sneak preview later on?
Well, I mean,
I think doing it later on might be safer and easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that. Now, just for some cheeky things here, because some of us do actually still need an income and work, and being self-employed is not a lot of fun. Because of Christmas, if you'd like to support me and keep my income employed by me doing fruit and vegetable deliveries, if you live in the Greater Wellington area, feel free to sit and place in an order. Now there is. Oh, now where is it? I do have in here.
How about this? For every super chat, I will do a burpee. You can see me do that on camera.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find where my Muslim's email that I had come in to deal with the what's it called? The latest mailer email, because I get sent the advertising mailers as well, but I seem to can't find it at the moment in there, and it's like it shouldn't have disappeared. But well, shit happens. So yes, if you'd like to do it, you've got to. If you want me to do it tomorrow, you've got to get it in by 9 p.m. tonight, which is in the middle of the show. So if you'd like to sit there and have me do that for within there, and they're also doing a $50 and a $90 fruit hamper box.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What do you get in the fruit hamper box?
Oh my god, that's the question. I don't know. I just deliver them. I just set up the track and trace. I mean, I do a bit.
As a surprise.
I don't pack them. It's like, I didn't even know that was happening until I got sent the email of it. Okay. Go away. Okay, so here we are. Let's go to the shared screen to the website. Just a moment while we. So that's one of the advertisings that are in there. So yeah, they have a small one at $50 and a large one on there. And obviously, if you want Captain Coast delivery, you've got to do that tonight because we're heading up a day earlier than planned. This is a bit more that can be put in there. If someone is willing to pick it up from Upper Hutt and drive it all the way up to Ekatahuna for Laura, happy to sit there and do that. I'm sure we can find an address to drop it off at.
But here's the problem. I'm already overloaded with fruit and vegetables. I grow a lot of my own stuff.
Yeah, if you would like to do a PAV, if you do it with coconut cream, you'll be my fan. So yeah, these are all the different things that are available for there. So yes, if you'd like to support Morshims and help keep some income going, feel free to do so. And also, if you're in Wellington, there is a special Newtown fruit and vegetable market this Tuesday, so you can pick up buy those strawberries. So let Izzy know that actually, because Izzy lives down the road.
Yes.
Yeah. So Izzy does live down the road. So yeah.
Have you ever seen her at the markets?
No, but then I'm stuck in my coffee cart all day, and I might not even know what's walking past me.
Oh,
I'll be honest on that.
Another burpee. Okay.
Yeah, it's
another burp. Okay, yeah, it's beginning.
It's beginning.
I got two burpees. Okay.
Oh yes, because we got a $20 super chat from Kiwi Skirt and a $2 super chat from Ryjan.
What, a 20? Do you want me to do 20 burpees?
Well, Ryjan's super chat's $2.
Where's Kiwi Skirt's super chat? I don't see it.
I've got it on the feed, but I wonder because Kiwi Skirt's an admin, moderator, does it sit down there and take it out?
Fuck, what have I done? Let's get those 2 burpees out of the way. You carry on. I'll just die in the background.
Die in the background. Okay. So we gonna. So do we full screen it for Laura?
Keep talking.
God.
There you go. There's 2 to begin with.
Oh. And the funny part is because of the way you've got the screen thing on there, you can we going backwards in and out.
I'm glitching in and out, folks. But there you go. I did them. I said I was going to do them. I did them.
Oh, so Kerry Skew's brought up there. It's 1 burpee. I thought it was 1 burpee per super chat.
Yeah, I think I might do it that way. Fuck! I've got to do 2 more. Carry on the show.
Yeah. So Alex has done another one. Yeah. So should we get? So we'll get Laura doing the burpee and disappearing in the background. Oh, heck. These are fun parts you can sit there and do on the final show for 2025.
There you go.
Yep, Blake. Blake. Yes, I will message that. I'll message that to you right now, straight onto our website. So yeah, I can do that for Blake. Okay. So let's get off to committee of the House. So we'll focus first here on committee of the House. Then we'll skip through to third reading and see how Goldie sits there and performs. So let's kick off with Vanushi Walters on her question to the Minister.
To the debate on Part 1. Part 1 is the debate on clauses 3 to 136, amendments to the Electoral Act 1993 and Schedule 1. The question is that Part 1 stand part. Vanushi Walters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's not a pleasure to rise and speak first in committee stage of this bill, but there is a lot to interrogate in terms of the rationale behind the bill, and certainly there have been a number of proposals that we have made that we look forward to the Minister considering in good faith. I did want to just start by acknowledging the submitters who came to the Justice Select Committee and presented on this bill, and really there was very strong opposition to a number of proposals, not all the proposals within the bill, Mr Chair, but certainly the proposal regarding the limitation of registration was something that came up, and there was mass opposition to that as a proposal. We also had, I think it was Margot Govers, who presented to the Select Committee dressed as a suffragette, and she was a very angry suffragette and expressed her views, but very thorough engagement from both general members of the public, but also public law experts who are extremely critical of these very dramatic changes to our electoral law. Several people made the point that for the last 30 years, people have been able to vote either on election day or the day before election day, and that it would be nigh on impossible for the Electoral Commission to achieve the task of educating people within such a short period of time about this incredibly significant change in relation to the bill. So it is a huge change. The other thing that I just wanted to repeat again is my disappointment that we're here at the end of the year and the bill's been taken through two stages under urgency. I've always believed that the value of having the different stages is also the gaps between those stages, and the second stage is really a reflection on what we heard at Select Committee and the report back. That debate should allow us sufficient time to then reflect on the amendments that we are drawing up. However, that hasn't been the case on this instance. Regardless, we do have a substantial number of amendments to go through already, although I would just suggest to the Minister and the Chair that there may be some others that come up through the course of our discussion on the basis of the debate that we have had. So on clause 3, which references the Principal Act, the first point I wanted to make was in relation to the Act that we're amending. Again, the Electoral Act, in my view, requires due care because it contains our reserved provisions. And so I'm not disputing the fact that we're amending that Act. I just would love to hear from the Minister whether his view is that it's appropriate for the Electoral Amendment Bill to go through these two stages under urgency, and to hear some reassurance from the Minister that he does intend to consider each of the amendments thoroughly before making a decision on whether they're to be accepted or not. I hope he will see that I've made some really practical proposals through the bill, mostly for clarification, some which I think will aid the bill's purported intention of timeliness, or looking after timeliness as well. One amendment that I will speak to first is the proposal I've made to include a new clause 3A. So this is essentially a sunset clause, and it is there to just really test the concept that the purpose of this bill will actually give effect to what it intends to do, because I think a number of submitters and certainly some experts pointed out to us that if people don't believe that, or if people believe that they're still able to cast a special vote, they will continue to do so. And so we might not necessarily see that improvement to timeliness in the 2023 election. What we might see is a dramatic increase in the special vote, and no ability to improve that timeliness at all, because it's quite institutionalised in New Zealand culture culture, that is the period of time that you also get to enrol and to vote. So the second question there is on whether the Minister would be amenable to accepting my proposal on 3A, the Amendment 3A, to include that sunset clause. I think I've been quite fair. I suggested a 2-year period, so just testing that this is indeed what we want to do. The other reason why I suggested a 2-year period is because the Electoral Commission told us that there were other measures that that they're taking to... Mr Chair? Thank you.
Honourable Paul Goldsmith.
Mr Speaker, I think it's worthwhile just starting out at the outset. We're going to have a lot of speeches talking about the early enrolment or requirements that people be elected, enrolled 13 days before the election, which is 1 day before early voting starts. And being enrolled before voting starts had been the tradition in New Zealand for a number of decades. What changed, of course, was the tradition of virtually everybody voting on election day over the last decade or so has changed dramatically, and so vast numbers of people now vote before the election in the early voting period. And so that's why the logic of having the voting the day before voting, the enrolments concluding before the day before voting starts. Now, there's all these amendments. It's worth just for people tuning in. This is the committee stage where we'll spend, where we're supposed to look at the detailed elements of the bill. We have literally dozens of amendments, and so we will be spending many hours voting, and so the choices have been made from the opposition parties to spend their time in, frankly, posturing and voting rather than actually debating the merits of the bill. So anyway, that's over to them. They can do that. I'm not going to be proposing to support any of Vanushi Walters' amendments, but time will tell. And so I'd be very happy to debate the issues of this bill, but we're going to be in for a very long voting period of the way things are organised.
So from what I'm hearing on there, hey guys, it sucks. You're keeping me in the chair for a long time. I can't sit there and go and get off to my other ministerial work and doing all that. You're wasting my time because I feel that it's a bit of an inconvenience for democracy to follow its process.
Yeah, I mean, the spoiler alert, none of the amendments get passed. except for the one that he put forward.
Oh, what was the one he put forward?
Oh, basically to revoke the right for people who are disabled, right, who are in a mental institution for longer than 3 years, denying them the right to vote. So that got revoked from the bill that he proposed. That got amended out.
So if you're in a psych ward or something for 3 years or longer, that was planned to be removed is now put back in.
No. What was proposed was that if you were in a psych ward for longer than 3 years, you got given the right to vote.
Okay.
Currently, you don't have the right to vote, or you don't have that ability to vote. Yeah. And the bill was going to give people that right, but he's taken it away again.
Oh my God! It's like I mean, I'd love to sit there and know what Blake would sit there and say about this, but it would be like saying to Blake, it's like, sorry, Blake, you can't vote. Considering that, because some people will say physical disability with mental disability and all sorts of things in there. But I mean, who also sets the test of who is and isn't mentally competent?
Good question. Well, normally it's psychiatrists and whatnot, but I still don't get it. Like, why is that a justification to revoke someone's right to vote?
Yeah, especially when it could be used for manipulative purposes. Like, that's the thing, is there? It's like just having the ability for it raises red flags. It is more wrong than the right to remove the vote. Yeah,
it's the UN.
Yeah.
The UN has condemned countries that do this, by the way, putting restrictions on people who are mentally disabled or whatnot, putting restrictions in the way of them being able to vote, right? It is, like what Rajan said, it is ableist, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's punishing someone who has a mental health condition that they can't control, can't help having. It's denying them the ability to participate in democracy. That's fucked up.
Yeah, what happens if they want to sit down there and vote for the mental health minister, MP for Waimakariri, what was it, Matt Ducey? Are they planning to sit there and take that away? God.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Labour. Let me just have a look over these amendments because I did look over Vanushi's amendments. Yeah, okay. So one of Vanushi Walter's amendments was going to entrench or keep in place allowing detained mental health patients to vote, right? But that amendment, that was Amendment 490, also rejecting the expansion on further restricting prisoner voting. So that's very much in line with.
Are they planning to restrict, as in those on remand from voting? Is that the expansion? Because the law was only talking about sentenced prisoners originally.
Well, from my reading of the bill, it's. Does it apply to those on remand? I'd have to double check the bill, but I do know that Labour was looking to put in amendments against the expansion on restricting prisoner voting. So I guess that also includes people that are in house arrest and whatnot.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because the current law states that if you're on remand, you still are allowed the right to vote. Also, if you've been sentenced to 3 years or less, well, actually, no, that's not the law anymore. But if you're on remand, you've always been allowed to vote. That's been something in there, and it's, like, imagine if you sit down there and you take away someone's right to vote on remand, and they get acquitted.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, you've literally denied an innocent person their democratic process.
Oh, I mean, I've read through the General Attorney report on this bill as well. Who is Judith Collins, by the way? She said this is not consistent with the New Zealand Bill of Rights.
Yeah. Well, that's not surprising. Yeah, even though her party still voted for it.
Oh, she gave it the thumbs up too. It's like, hey, it violates human rights, but let's go ahead with it.
Yeah. Okay, let's hear more from our lovely, esteemed MPs.
Vanushi Walters, but before we take the next one, I'm going to go back to Vanushi Walters, is that when you are referring to amendments, because there are a number, could you please refer to the date stamp and the time stamp to help us to sort of track it up here at the front? Vanushi Walters.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and I'm maybe looking for a bit of guidance from the Chair, because I was very troubled to hear the Minister say that we'd made a choice between tabling amendments and have a dialogue with him. That I don't believe is the case. I would like the Minister to commit to a thorough conversation about these very significant changes to electoral law, as well as consider each of the amendments in a singular way. I thought that was quite a broad statement about all of the amendments that I've made, which cover the scope of the bill and cover many different issues, some which might take a different ideological position to the Ministers, but open to him to consider, some which are quite technical, some which are about clarifying, and so perhaps I'll just seek some guidance from the Chair.
Just for clarity for the House as well, the discretion, of course, is the Chair, but what we will be looking for is relevance and making sure that we are focusing on particular clauses. That is very helpful for the House, so relevance is really important, making sure that when issues are addressed that there isn't repetition. That is another thing that we look for, but what we're also looking for is conduct of the House and, of course, engagement from the Minister. These are the elements to help us to balance the different priorities. Vanushi Walters, do you want to keep going?
Mr Chair, thank you.
Helen White.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I want to ask some of the questions that things that I traversed when I was talking in my speech. The first is the incredible number of voters who voted last time in the period that will now be a no vote or a no enrolment time. So people came in that period having not been in that 13-day period. They hadn't pre-enrolled, and they came in, and it was well over 200,000 voters that were affected. And we know from the submissions and from the evidence out there that this kind of curbing of the opportunity to enrol makes a difference of 3 to 7%. And it affects a particular type of voter, and so it does have implications, political implications. Now, in a system like ours, which is MMP, we, even at the current time of polling, we can see that in the left and right camps, with various different parties, there is often only a fraction of a percentage difference between whether you form a government or not. And so I would like to know from the Minister, putting this together,
What's the video?
what thought...
Yeah, I just wanted to address this comment here. Home's detention for a period, where is the line? Well, I've just gone over the bill again. People on parole, according to the bill, my reading of it is, yes, they do retain the right to vote. It's talking about imprisonment.
Yeah, and same with home detention. And also, if you are on home detention and it is election day, you are given leave to actually go out and vote.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
if your parole officer denies you that, the parole officer could actually go to jail.
Mhm.
That's how serious it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue more from Helen.
What was put into the issue of this within an MMP system where in fact we know that there is a change in trend, 3 to 7% less people vote in this situation, and that has critical impact in our particular system because we run an MMP system with a fairly even split between left and right and populist parties having basically an opportunity to be kingmaker in between. And what was thought about in terms of that? I'd also really like to ask about our voters that I talked about in my speech, who I met at the door frequently, the ones that had moved house. Now, that is becoming, unfortunately, more and more common for New Zealanders, that they can't necessarily afford to own their own house, and the government has moved our legislation and our protections on renters a further way and now taken away their security of tenure so that they can be terminated in their employment at any time. That can happen. And that means that they have very little control over whether there will be turmoil in their life at that time. They're not even in control of that calendar. And so I want to know, for those voters who move house, and that's not necessarily anything they are going to choose to do, it's going to happen to them, what does the Minister have to say about that group of people who are one of the ones strongly impacted? How many of the voters that we are talking about are in that situation? And I'd like his comment on that. I'd like to know what his response is to the comment that was made, and it's been made frequently, but it was made by the RNZ political reporters, that there was a disproportionate effect on participation in the situation. So I've talked about the number of people who were impacted, the 236,000, I think, who voted last time in this as a result of being able to enrol at this time. I want to know what kind of response he has to the proportionate nature of the issue that he's trying to solve, the mischief of the length of time, as I understand it, versus the impact on that giant part of the population. And I put in my speech my own personal experience, which was that I actually had to wait and wait again as there were recounts, etc. I'd like to know from the Minister, why is it a proportionate response? If I'm the person in that situation and, in fact, I wait during those periods, does it mean that there are other reforms coming? And because, in fact, having a recount, that took a while, and that can change the vote.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Paul Gordon.
Yeah.
The issue has been raised about the number of people who have enrolled in the 13 days before the election in the most recent election, and a figure of 200,000 people has been raised. It's also been raised that around 100,000 people enrolled on election day. And the proposition put forward by the opposition is that somehow these voters would be disenfranchised by this change. Now, that assumes that 200,000 people are incapable of understanding that the rules have changed over the course of the year, and we don't hold that view. And so the problem that the Electoral Commission has had since Labour Party pushed through changes 6 years ago which enabled enrolling on election day, that they've had a very mixed message. So the Electoral Commission has been saying, yes, I know, but the Electoral Commission has been saying, get enrolled, because it is your legal obligation to be enrolled, and every time you move, you need to make sure you update those information so you are properly enrolled for the election at any time. But they've also said, but by the way, you don't need to get enrolled because you can just rock up on election day and enrol at the point. And so people have got, okay, which message is it? Do I need to get enrolled before the election, or can I just rock up on election day and enrol at that point? And of course, more and more people received the second message and enrolled on election day. But there is a real consequence for that. And the consequence for that is that if you're enrolling after writ day on election day, then you immediately have a special vote. And the special vote takes, on average, the advice from the Electoral Commission is 10 times longer to deal with. And so more and more New Zealanders have been getting the message is that you don't need to enrol during the 3-year cycle, but you can enrol on election day, and more special votes are happening. And that is why it's been taking longer and longer and longer to process the vote. And so we're going to send a different message this time round. And so we have every confidence that the people that enrolled on election day and in the 13 days before the election at the last election will have a different message this time. The message will be get enrolled, as is your legal duty, as early as you can, keep enrolled, be enrolled by writ day, and then you'll be able to vote. Now, if the proposition from the electorate is that our voters are less capable of being enrolled, that is a very strange message to be sending to your supporters, and I don't think anybody would suggest that. In terms of moving houses, the relation to moving houses is that you qualify in the place that you've lived in for 30 days. And so if you move in those 13 days before the election, but you've been in a house for the last 30 days, then you'll stay enrolled in that house. And so that is the situation.
Yeah, Paul Goldsmith, you've missed the point there. What happens if you move 6 weeks before the election and that 30 days come in that 13-day period? Because the law states you must be voting in a new electorate, but your law that you've put through Parliament says that you can't. So, yeah, it's like, and that's the point that people are making on there. I mean, put it this way. If I go to Queen's Gate, which is a shopping mall near me, if I have to do a special vote to vote in Queen's Gate, to vote in the Wellington Bays electorate, that isn't fixing a problem. That's a simple way where you could eliminate me doing a special vote. I got heckled by people in Auckland last general election because on the Monday before election day, I was in Auckland. I got told I should go and sit there and do a special vote. I got heckled by that by National voters and by Labour voters. You know, supporters, it's about, no, you should do it, you should get it done now. You know, don't sit and leave it to chance. You know, despite the fact that I knew I was going to be back in Wellington by the time election day happened, because on the Tuesday I was driving back to Wellington and was able to do a general vote, not a special vote. But I was being bullied by supporters of the National Party and the Labour Party to do a special vote in Auckland for the Rongotai electorate. You know, so that bullying actually sits down there and puts more pressure on the system. And maybe you need to tell your volunteers of your party, and maybe you should put that as a national directive to not bully out-of-towners who know they're going to be back in their electorate by election day to sit there and do a special vote 660 kilometres away from their home.
Yeah, I mean, before I have to do, what is this, 10 burpees, thanks to Mr. Alex, let's go over all these claims. Okay, so Paul Goldsmith, he put down, he made 4 general claims, and the first one that he put forward was the idea that 200,000 people would be disenfranchised, assumes that 200,000 people are incapable of understanding the rules have changed. Well, the Attorney General's report in particular doesn't frame the issue as one of voter capability. It frames it as a matter of long-standing expectation and behaviour. So even Judith Collins knows this. Voters have had a 30-year expectation that they can enrol up to election day, and changing this is identified as a source of potential disenfranchisement. It's like if you've got a habit of going, yep, we know that the tradition is enrolling up until election day, and now that's been changed, right? And you're going, well, that's on you. It is a form of victim blaming in a sense.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
oh, it's your fault. I was like, no. As a government, you have an obligation to make sure the messaging is very clear that you have to enroll to vote now.
Yeah.
Have you seen any advertising encouraging people to enroll?
Not at the moment. Oh, and actually, at the moment, I've moved house. I mean, I've literally moved one street from where I lived, in October. I'm in the same electorate, but I have not updated my details yet. And also the other thing is the 28-day rule wouldn't be a problem, or the 30-day rule that Paul Goldsmith talks about. I mean, when I went for the Electoral Commission, it was 28 days. And that's what we were instructed on, was 28 days.
Yep.
And the thing is, the 28-day rule wouldn't apply in my situation because the fact is I'm in the same electorate. But like the problem is if you're in a city, I mean, if we drive down the southern motorway in Auckland, you cross over so many electoral boundaries. Like, if you're at the top of the Bombay Hills, you're in Port Waikato electorate, Andrew Bailey's your MP. Then you go across into Papakura, and you're in what's the place called? Papakura, Judith Collins territory. Then you get around and you see a lovely ex called Takanini. Then you're in Rima Narkle's one. You cross over so many electoral boundaries on your way to Spaghetti Junction. It's crazy. Now, you can have another situation where you can sit down there, Lee Foxton, and you can be in the same electorate until you sit down there and get out of Tamaranui. Okay? But like that fact is, like some people, a simple move can be the difference of changing an electorate, and you can be moving across the road when you're in a city. Put it this way, under the current electoral boundaries, Carol, who's a member of the Newtown Residents Association, is currently in the Wellington Central electorate in the Pukehina Lambton ward for voting because she lives on that side of the boundary, whereas most of the executive live on this side of the boundary, which are part of Paikawakawa Southern ward and part of Rongotai electorate. But, little things like that, how close that boundary is. Because, if anyone remembers the Lotus Lodge fire, you had 2 local MPs talking because the people of Loafers Lodge were part of the Wellington Central electorate, but when they had a problem with the government, they went to the nearest electorate office, which was the Rongotai electorate office down Ridderford Street. So you had both Paul Eagle and Grant Robertson talking about the fire because the building was on the Wellington Central side of the boundary and the hospital was on the Rongotai side of the boundary across the road.
Here's the other thing that Paul Goldsmith admitted when he was talking about moving house. If you move more than 13 days before the election, but you don't update your enrolment, you will be registered in the wrong electorate.
Yeah, but also you have to live there for 30 days before you can do it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And I've seen people who have not updated their details go there with the easy vote cards in the old electorates and then to go to a special vote. Well, actually, have you lived here for more than 20 days? Yes. Well, actually, you've got to vote in this electorate, update the enrolment details, and give a special vote for the Rongotai electorate.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that at the last 2 elections for special voting. So, what's going to happen this time? Well, in theory, I should be making you enroll, but Paul Goldsmith says I can't.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what the goal is. What the goal will be. Will that be literally saying, is his aim of, sorry, you're not enrolled, you can't vote? Because that's not going to happen on election day. You're going to be encouraged to do a special vote.
Speaking of elections, Super Chat for $10. Wow. Have you reached your Super Chat goal yet?
Well, probably, what's it called? There's 20 a 10 and was it two $2 ones? So 34. Yes. I'd probably say that will probably tip it over the edge, only because we lose 30% before it goes into there, and it has to be $150 before they send out the payment.
Right, okay, So I'm just going to read this out. I don't see the coalition winning the election next year because of the Regulatory Standards Bill, the Treaty Principles Bill, Fast Track, and Social Security Amendment, Mandatory Review Amendment. Yeah, I would... Look, in a perfect world, they wouldn't win. Unfortunately, most people... we're weird, in case you haven't noticed. If you look at the chat, everyone here is weird, okay?
Everyone is politically aware.
Yeah, we're very woke. Hits the hat. But we're very aware of all the policies that are being passed, right? But the majority of the New Zealand public is not. And they
don't know until it goes wrong with them.
This
got caught out with COVID. The number of people who went, but I think it's wrong that I can't get the benefit when I lost my job, but my husband hasn't or wife hasn't. I was like, sorry, that's the Social Securities Act.
Yep.
It sucks. But it is the law. How do you think couple beneficiaries have been coping, especially when one of them can't actually work?
Yep. And with that said, I'm going to do 10 push-ups because I'm not going to do 10 burpees. I'll be out of gas by the time I finish the stream. So I'll be back. You carry on, Sam.
Okay, so let's continue on with more from, this time, from Lawrence Zunan.
Lawrence Zunan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to just start by just reaffirming what Venusia was mentioned before, that because a substantial part of this is in part 1, we're going to be looking at part 1 subpart by subpart. So we are currently on subpart 1, which is electoral registration. But before that, I want to check with the minister if there's any, if the minister has received any advice in terms of Clause 3 Principal Act on whether the amendment bill that we have presented in front of us contradicts with the fundamental purpose of the principal act, which is Electoral Act 1993. So I wanted to just kind of put that on the table first. I also want to check a couple of things that the minister mentioned earlier, because the minister has mentioned a couple of things that I think is really deserving some sort of unpacking, because the minister mentioned that this is Electoral Commission saying that they're sending mixed messages, but would the minister be able to let us know which part of the Electoral Commission's advice, where they are saying, or any data or survey that's been done from the public that suggests that mixed messages are being sent of people both, because from what I'm hearing, what the minister said is either you register as quickly as possible, yes, we understand there's a legal obligation, or you registered on the day. Either way, the Electoral Commission is telling people to register, which is the fundamental baseline we're looking at here. So I don't quite understand where the minister is coming from in terms of mixed message, because it sounds like from what the minister is saying, both messages are saying vote or register and choose when you can register. Also, in terms of special votes, I'm interested to unpack some of the data and statistics with the minister, because the minister says special votes takes 10 times longer. I don't deny in terms of the duration of how long special vote takes, but how much of the special votes is from voting on the day? What proportion is that? I can see the minister, looking at officials. I think that is a really important data to address the actual policy problem we're seeing presented here. Because special votes also includes people who are helping out people in retirement villages, who are also going to be, who are immobile. Those are considered special votes. Overseas New Zealanders, those are considered special votes. So what is the proportion of the people who are voting within the 13-day threshold? And I think finally, because again, we want to unpack some of the broader policy questions. What the minister is saying, I just want to push back a little bit on in terms of what the opposition is saying in terms of numbers. That's not what the opposition is saying. That's what the Attorney General is saying. What we're quoting from is the Attorney General's Section 7 report. And as the minister would appreciate as well, that the magnitude of a Section 7 report is something that we rarely see in this House. Hence, we are putting a much heavier emphasis on what Attorney General presents in here. And I think the last question I have for the minister for this contribution is, if you're looking at paragraph 47 of the Section 7 report, it says, taking into account these factors, and there are 4 factors in total, I conclude that the proposal for the 13-day registration deadline appears to constitute an unjustified limit on Section 12 of NZ Bora. So my question then to the minister is, upon receiving this, what sort of work has been done to ensure that maybe there's a way for us to bring it in line within NZ Bora? It could be a shorter period of rather than 13 days, 7 days, it could be something else. But as it stands, the 13 days that the Attorney General raises a concern retained within the current legislation. So as the minister would also know, that when we're looking at NZ Bora and we're looking at checks and balances, the ability to limit is within Section 5 of NZ Bora. So there is with a possibility that a right could be limited, but upon balance, that right is justified. But what we're seeing is not here, and what we're seeing is not within the 13 days. So I would like to just check finally with the minister in terms of what advice has the minister received to bring that in line with NZ Bora and justify the limitation, not only just under Section 6 and 4, but also under Section 5 of NZ Bora.
Venusi Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to give a few general questions to the Minister and then speak to some of my amendments. So the first general question is on the Minister's problem statement, so the problem definition, and just clarifying with the Minister that the key problem definition is the forecast of the 2032 election in terms of the number of specials, close to 1 million, I believe, that's predicted that we would get to at that stage, and that really it's about ensuring that when we get to 2032, we've got a system that is well managed and does give us a timely count. The second general question is around whether the Minister considered the financial implications of moving ahead with the proposal as it is instead of what the Attorney General has proposed, given the implications for declarations of inconsistency to run through the courts potentially over a number of years and then return to the House's time, but also the cost to the Electoral Commission of potentially setting up a system that it will then need to undo, both in terms of education as well as the administrative aspects of the system. I just wanted to flag the dates and timestamp for the amendment that I referred to earlier, which is Thursday the 11th of December at 5:45 4 seconds. This was the one about the sunset clause to ensure that we could trial the system and see if it works, whether it's still fit for purpose. I hear the Minister that that's not something that he would wish to consider. I didn't get to finish the end of my argument, so I'll just finish that one, which is that given the other changes to the system will be made after the 2026 election, there's potentially an opportunity to line up appropriate changes or to leave them aside if they are no longer needed, because the other systems that we've identified appear to be sufficient to allow that vote count to speed up. I then have a set of amendments which were filed on the 8th of December. So they're filed as amendment papers 448 to 460, and a number of them concern clause 4, which are, and these are all, in all seriousness, very serious amendments. They propose a number of different dates that the Minister could choose to restrict the vote, the registration period on. Now, the Justice Select Committee did discuss whether it was possible to not go quite as far as 13 days, but go some way there to perhaps meet the objective of reducing the or increasing the time available to count the special votes, while still not being overly diminishing the right to vote. And indeed, the Attorney General herself suggested that one remedy to potentially bring the proposal within that reasonable limitation assessment could be to move the date back to where it had been prior to the last government's change, which was the day prior to the election. Again, remembering that for 30 years people have either been able to vote on the day of the election or the day before, and those habits, those ingrained habits, when you're talking about something as significant as voting, are significant. Just also given that the timeline we're looking at is that the Electoral Commission will pick this up next year and then start to operationalise these changes alongside having to carry out rather an expansive education campaign before the 2026 election, test that it's working, fix any bugs, and then get us to an election. So just asking whether the Minister would consider any of those alternative options that I've put forward in that set of amendment papers, or the advice of the Attorney General, to ensure that perhaps we can fall within a clean bore of vet space, at least in regards to this part of the bill. And I would also put it to the Minister that there's an economic advantage in seriously considering that, because of the very, very strong likelihood that we'll see this bill come back to us in the form of a declaration of inconsistency, and that potentially it's a better position for the Minister to be in and for our justice system to be in, for us not to have to pay for that as well.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr Chair, the question was asked about the percentage of special votes that were related to enrolment status, and the estimate I have received is between 300 and 350,000 in that category. In terms of the comments that have been made, have I considered, or did the government consider different options in terms of taking the enrolment back 1 day or 13 days or 26 days? And yes, we did consider all those options. There's a variety of approaches taken in different countries. By recollection, in the UK, it's roughly about 13 days before the election when people need to be enrolled. In Australia, it's roughly 26 days before the election. Again, I object and reject the proposition that New Zealanders are somehow less capable than Australians when it comes to being enrolled for an election. I have greater faith in the Kiwis. Now, of course, the reference has been made to the fact it's been 30 years that it's been the day before the election or on election day. That is true. The previous Labor government changed the rules to make it available on election day to be enrolled, but before that it was the day before the election. But as the point I've made, and I'm repeating myself already, Mr Chair, the point I made was that electoral practices has changed significantly in New Zealand in the last decade or so. Most people used to vote on election day, not to until quite recently, and now it's changed dramatically, so that a very large number of people vote before the election, as early voting has become more and more encouraged and a part of things. And it makes no sense to have a cut-off to enrolment halfway through the voting period or in the middle of the voting period. And so the logic is that we are stopping enrolment the day before voting starts, which is the consistency that we've had for a long period of time. I have, in terms of the amount of time the Electoral Commission has got to prepare for this, it has been well signalled now for more than 6 months that this is the move that the government intends to make. The Electoral Commission has a duty and a focus to encourage New Zealanders to be enrolled. Mr Shunan talked about the mixed message. The simple message that is justified by the legislation is that there is a duty of New Zealanders over the age of 18 to be enrolled, and if they move in a short period of time, alert the Electoral Commission so your electoral status and enrolment is up to date. It's not just used for elections, it's used for things like jury service, and that is the job of citizens to maintain their enrolment status up to date. Now, but of course, there's no reason to do that if the other message is out there which says, but don't worry, you can just rock up on election day and enrol at that point. And so more and more people were getting that message, and that is why we've had the incredible growth of late enrolments over the last few election cycles. And so that is the different message that we're going to send, and we've got every confidence in New Zealanders to be able to receive that message.
It just looks like Goldsmith just wants to stick to his talking points and not actually sit down there and listen. And, like, you know, these MPs are critiquing the flawness in your logic, Goldie, and you just are literally just blurting out your talking points like you're a broken record.
But the other thing too is that, okay, we have same day enrollment, right? And he's like, well, Kiwis have an obligation to enroll. It is their civic duty. Okay, same day enrollment. Okay, cool. People are doing their civic duty. No, that's not good enough. We need to have them do it 13 days ahead of time. But a lot of them are not going to be able to fulfill the civic duty because if we go over the Attorney General's report, it's not about voter capability. It's about changing long-held expectations and the disproportionate impact on specific demographics like Māori, Pacifica, youth, renters, people who don't speak English as their first language, right? They're all Kiwis, right?
And I can certainly tell you right now the number of people who were refugees who were at Newtown Market on election day who have basically been encouraged by other people. Hey, have you gone and voted yet? No. And so they go in and do a same day enrollment because they weren't aware that was an obligation.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, and when you combine it with the fact that Erica Stanford has made it that there's not really a standard anymore. If you, I think it's like if you have a certain amount of income or something, you can just move into New Zealand or the golden visa or whatever, right? Are those people who don't speak English fluently enough to really like have a conversation down the street, right? They're gotten in because of their wealth. Are they going to understand what their voting rights are? Is the government going to put in the effort to advertise in their languages the voting changes and when they've got to enroll and when they've got to do this?
I haven't seen any question.
I haven't seen any advertising whatsoever telling people to enroll early.
Yeah. Okay, there are some highlighted chats on here. Now, this one is about Lawrence Unan, who has done the most speaking time in Parliament. We can confirm that because he has actually featured in so much of our footage. It's not funny. It's like, you know, another speech from Lawrence, another banger from Lawrence.
I mean, I having personal experience with Lawrence. I brought up a technical policy thing with the Green Party, and he just went in depth into every single little legal mechanism, and I was just like every single policy point, and I was just like standing there like absolutely just like my brain just melted out of my head because he was going up and beyond.
Okay, so this is coming here from Simon. You know, one of our fans I've met in Rora. I really do think New Zealand needs to seriously get people automatically registered to vote if the IRD has your details and you have a community service card. There's other things.
I just want to bring up a problem with that. The Māori enrolment.
Yep.
If you have people that whakapapa Māori, you have to give them the choice to enroll on the Māori roll or the general roll. You just do automatic enrolment right across the board because that is a potential human rights problem there if you do that, especially with Māori voters.
Yeah, if you're not Māori, like me, who's only 6th generation Kiwi, I still don't know how the hell I've managed to avoid having any Māori descent in me, considering I know Māori who have less generation links to New Zealand than I have, who actually are by blood, but at least there is a link in there, but I mean, it's not within the last 3 generations, I know that much. But yeah, you know, you have got the point there. Yeah, it's like yourself. It's like, it's you'll literally bring up a problem with it, and the fact that our Māori population between the last 2 censuses has gone up by 3%.
Yeah, because Todd Stevenson tried making this proposal, right, and he was shot down pretty quickly by Celia, who brought up the counterpoint I just did.
Yeah, we're not in the UK. You know.
Yeah, we're not in the UK. Not everyone is like.
Or Australia.
Yeah, or Australia, okay.
Where he spent the last of his life until he became a politician in New Zealand after he headhunted by David Seymour.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, why haven't the Greens made it compulsory? Just also put out something in there. Australia's had compulsory voting for over 100 years.
Well, the reason why we haven't made it compulsory is I think to do something like that, you need to get 75% of Parliament's support. And the issue is I don't think, like if the Labour and Greens, so judging by the way how this coalition has worked, are you seriously going to tell me that the coalition is going to get the thumbs up to a Labour Greens policy making compulsory voting, bringing compulsory voting? Like it's already compulsory to enrol. You have to be enrolled.
And the other thing that comes up problem is local bodies. So my friend Eleanor, who is Australian, who's living in New Zealand, she had moving overseas. She had to opt out of all voting, or opt into all voting, to vote internationally. And she said the biggest issue was with that policy is the local elections and random by-elections. And when you're in another country, you don't pick up on that. Like for the Australian general election, yeah, no problem. Easy to sit there and know when that's happening. When a state election's happening, easy to know when that's happening. When a council by-election's happening, you may not have a clue unless you actually sit down there and actually, put it in there. Principally, yes. And also the other issue they have in Australia is the fact with the preferential voting, you have to actually rank at least, it used to be you had to rank all boxes. Now you have to at least rank 6 boxes on a House of Representatives, and at least it's either 6 or 12 above the line or 18 below the line for the Senate. So that's the other issue in Australia, is the fact that with the compulsory voting is they got preferential voting and the ranking, and then you also have over there is the how to vote cards that political parties do, which is something we don't have in New Zealand because for general elections it's 2 ticks. And I mean, I've seen how to vote cards at some local body elections, but like, I'll be honest with you, I've not seen that as an adult. I saw that when we had the very earliest introduction to STV on the Kapiti Coast when I grew up, when I was below 18.
Yeah, different voting system.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing is, I've not seen it. And was it, how many councils did we cover the local body elections? I think it was 18. Yeah. And there was no how to vote cards at all around in any STV areas, or even in first past the post areas.
I just want to counterpoint to myself. Vote on the roll if they didn't vote. I mean, in a utilitarian sense, yes, but you have to go back to Te Tiriti and the fact that, you've got issues around, you've got things around sovereignty, and the onus would still be on Māori to update their voting details. So you wouldn't exactly have a very equal system. Whereas Pākehā wouldn't, or Tauiwi wouldn't need to update their voting details to get the Māori candidates to be able to vote for their Māori candidates for choice. So, there is a bit of a constitutional issue potentially with that, and also you would need 75% of the vote in order to pass something like this.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. The next one's from Ginny Anderson.
The Honourable Ginny Anderson.
Yeah, I just like to ask questions around Part 1, Clause 4.2. It provides in Section 3.1, it inserts as appropriate in alphabetical order, close of registration. In relation to registration, as an elector of an electoral district, an election means the close of the 13th day before polling for the election. So I just would like to ask the Minister about his view, because we seem to have some tension here in terms of the different advice that's being provided to this House. And so the regulatory impact statement under that, on page 12, it stipulates that the primary objectives are to improve the timeliness of the official vote count and the efficiency of electoral administration. And then it goes on to say, Mr Chair, specifically the Minister of Justice has expressed an expectation that the vote count should be able to be completed within 14 days of the election day for the 2026 general election. And it says these objectives will contribute to the outcomes of concluding elections more quickly, managing the costs of future elections, and providing more effective services to the public and the electoral participants. But then the interesting point is, and this is what I'd like to know, because there seems to be a contradiction between here and what the Attorney General is saying. It says that the primary objectives should be considered in the context of other enduring objectives for the electoral law, such as encouraging participation and maintaining the integrity of the electoral system. So it does seem that the Minister's priorities, which would be to improve the timeliness of the official vote and to have efficiency within the the electoral administration, it appears that he's inserted those objectives to be above or in a higher rank than participation in our democracy. And that seems to be in contradiction to the New Zealand Bill of Rights, because it says quite clearly that the proposal under, at present, electors can register at any time before on a polling day and then vote in corresponding election. This bill proposes to change this by providing for a different registration deadline of 13 days. If a person has not registered by the deadline, they would be unable to vote in the upcoming election. The rationale for this change is to address delays in the post-election vote count, which have become more pronounced. While acknowledging the public importance of promoting timeliness in the counting of votes, I nonetheless consider the specific proposal for a 13-day registration deadline appears inconsistent with the right to vote in Section 12 of the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act. So my question to the Minister is he quite simply saying to New Zealanders, against the advice of the Attorney-General and the Bill of Rights vet, that his view that the primary objective to improve timeliness supersedes the right of being able to participate in our democracy? And that particularly relates to the fact that that clause under 4, Part 1, 4, that he is changing the law that means the closing on the 13th day before polling day of the election would quite simply exclude a number of people, at least 100,000, from being able to exercise their right to vote. And I think it's really important that we get it on the record that the reason for making this change is that he is saying, against his own Attorney-General's advice, that timeliness is more important than participating in democracy. And I think that is really the nub of what this bill is going to be about. It's this clause here that New Zealanders are going to want to know about, because if this is a government saying that they want to cut costs and make things run more efficiently by excluding people from exercising their right to vote, then I think they should be clear and just say that out loud. Because a couple of days here or there, my view and the view of the Labour Party is that people participating in our democracy doesn't have a price. That is a fundamental right that should be superseded by lots of other, that goes ahead of all those other things. And in fact, the Bill of Rights would support that point of view. So I'm interested to hear straight from the Minister if he's prepared to put on the record that he thinks timeliness is more important than people participating in our democracy, and if so, why?
Honourable Minister.
The member sort of alleges that in seeking to find a balance between timeliness and participation, the government has erred entirely on the side of timeliness. That, of course, is not the case. If that was the case, then the government would have decided to take enrolments back to writ day, which is about 30 days before the election, and that was the case back 20, 30 years ago. And so everybody had to be elected, everybody had to be enrolled by writ day. We haven't taken that course. Some people argued for that, and if you wanted to have the most efficient system possible, everybody needs to be enrolled by writ day, and then there's no special votes for late enrolment, and it's nice and tidy, simple. That's the most efficient way of doing things. That's not what we did. We've picked a more lenient date, which allows people more flexibility and closes enrolments the day before election. So in making that balance, we very much continued that. In terms of the Bill of Rights implications, well, sort of one way of looking at it is the Bill of Rights approach, some people will argue, is almost like a ratchet. You can only get enrolments closer and closer to the election, and that's okay, but the moment a government reverses the flow, it immediately is a breach of the human rights. And so it's like a ratchet can only ever go one way. And that's not how policy operates. Governments will have a different view. The previous government decided that it was going to take enrolments closer to the election. This government has got a different view because we're concerned about other things. And so with respect, we as a government didn't agree with the advice around that. And thirdly, again, the member continues to talk about 100,000 people being excluded from voting. That assumes that people cannot adapt in any way, in shape or form to a different set of requirements and expectations. Yes, 100,000 people enrolled on election day, but that is only because they could. And 2 elections before, they couldn't have, and so there were 0 people enrolling on election day. This coming election, they will have a very clear message from the Electoral Commission that if they want to vote, they need to be enrolled 13 days before the election. And we're very conscious, and I'm repeating myself again, Mr. Chair, for the 3rd time, that we're very confident that people will be able to make those decisions.
Again, do I have to repeat myself for the 3rd time what the General Attorney said, Judith Collins? But anyways,
put it this way. What would he prefer? 100,000 special votes that get disallowed?
Yeah.
Like, that's what he's proposing as a solution. It's a bit like, maybe I wish someone actually sat there and asked that question. Would he be comfortable for 100,000 special votes to be disallowed because of these rules? Because that's going to be the outcome. It's not going to be 100,000 people be turned away they're going to be encouraged to do a special vote that gets invalidated.
Yeah, pretty much. And then, that has a knock-on effect. People go, well, why the fuck then should I vote? This is going to have a disfranchising effect if people special votes
especially to people, like people who don't have even trust in the system. Like, I know that in the flat that I lived at for a very short period of time in Gordon Street, Panache comes from Zimbabwe. Politicians are corrupt. If it wasn't for G dragging him to the polling booth to sit there and do a same-day enrollment, he never would have been enrolled to vote ever in New Zealand.
Yeah.
He because in Zimbabwe, all politicians are corrupt. So if you speak to a Zimbabwe, Paul Goldsmith, you're corrupt. Ginny Anderson, you're corrupt. What do you call it? Julian Jetta, you're corrupt. Like the list, like they see everyone as corrupt.
Yep.
And if you see them as corrupt, you're not likely to participate in the system. So and imagine if you sit there and get someone to turn around, that you get them in there to don't vote, to go, oh, your vote's disallowed. What is that person going to go? Well, it was corrupt anyway. And that doesn't build trust.
Ultimately, it's just simpler and easier to allow same-day enrollments because the amount of resources you're going to have to put in to encourage people to be enrolled, prior to 13 days before the election, it's just like it just.
And also, here's the other thing: is a same-day enrollment voter is quicker to fix than trying to find where they used to be on the electoral roll. So actually, it takes longer to find voters to disallow a vote than it would be with same-day enrollment.
I just want to go over one claim that Goldsmith made in response to what Ginny said.
Yeah.
That the government has not erred entirely on timelessness because it didn't want to revert to the strictest possible deadline. So that's your 30 days prior writ day. But yeah, it's like the idea that, we could have been harsher. It doesn't actually address the absolute finding of the Attorney General that the chosen 13-day limit in of itself is unjustified.
It's like saying to a beneficiary, well, we could have fully sanctioned you instead of doing a 50% sanction, so you should be grateful.
Yeah. Basically, it's basically that. But yeah, it's like just because the worst option exists doesn't justify this option.
Yeah. It's like you're literally like, I got given a recent example was, sorry, you can't bring the coffee cart, but you can come there. Oh, yeah, sorry, I can't now afford that. You've taken away my income. How about you come for a day and go, it's still the same scenario you've brought up. If I can't afford to put petrol in the car to go to the supermarket, how the hell can I afford to drive 250 kilometres up the road for a day or a week? That costs the same.
Yeah, again, I encourage
the fees is the smallest part of it. It's the petrol getting there and back and the loss of income.
Yeah. Again, I encourage everyone to read the General Attorney Report. It's written by Judith Collins. It's not some woke document. It's written by Judith, right, where she actually goes over the issues with the bill. It's very insightful. But before we carry on, let's go over these pinned comments. So, Māori should be added to both, but only be allowed to vote one of them. I do actually agree with this compromise. I do think this is a good compromise.
And it's one where, postal voting, that won't work. But for in-person voting, that could be where the vote is corrected down to which electoral roll as the decision could be made in that particular situation. Now, that does fall foul of the other piece of rule that's out there is the fact that you cannot swap electoral rolls up until 3 months to the election. But as a new enrolment, that is the thing. But the question is, it's like, when does it get activated is the other question. But also, at the enrolment, it's the enrolment form that actually is where you sign the declaration to say you are Māori or not. It is not at the point of when, say, DIA says this person's too dated. It is an assumption of an automatic enrolment system. Now, we do have an automatic notification for deaths to the Electoral Commission, which is when, as soon as the death is registered with DIA, DIA sends a list out once a week to the retrospective electoral offices around the country to take people off the electoral roll. So, and it's usually within a week. The only time it might be delayed is if a registrar's on leave, but they typically aren't on leave during election periods. They're typically on leave in quieter periods.
Yeah, I mean, Kiwi Skirt does bring up a point, though, because this is not unique, this talking point here. This has been brought up even by Māori academics as a potential solution to the problem. Like I was just reading what Wiremu Daughtry, Professor Wiremu Daughtry of Te Whare Wānanga o Awa Nui Rangi, right? He wrote quite an interesting piece on this particular issue. I can put that in the chat. But when he was talking with Peter Sharples about ways amendments can be done to increase the amount of Māori participation in voting, so that's the link there.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is not a unique. This has been debated for years. And then we'll go to this one. 7 days might be fair instead of 13 days. Oh boy, you're gonna love the amendments.
It's the fairer process.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna love all the amendments then. Too bad they all get shot down.
Yeah.
And then this last one here. Yeah, you want to speak on this one, Sam?
I'm not sure. I'm unsure whether Greg will stand for the next election. You'll probably have an idea about it in February, because he will be going to. Because the other thing that Greg's got to sit and look at is the fact that he will be deciding probably over Christmas year, because he does a road trip every year to the South Island, where he's from, to visit family and all that, and he takes Michael, his son, with him. He'll probably be the one who'll end up deciding that. I do hope Greg does stand, so that he can at least be on that speaker's team and be, to deal with the petitions and all that sort of stuff, which is what he's been doing for the last, this current term and the previous term. But yeah, basically on that. And also the other one on here, how much warning do you need to sit there and announce election date? And it's 6 weeks. 6 weeks is the shortest time frame to sit there and do that. And the best example of that, of calling a snap election, was 1984 with Muldoon. 2002 was a snap election was called, which was about about 6 or 7 weeks notice. And it's at the discretion of the Prime Minister to call the election date. They typically tend to talk with the Election Commission and the Governor General before doing it, but effectively the minimum turnaround period is 6 weeks, because you've got to have nominations open for 2 weeks beforehand for nominating to vote.
That's
so
50 days, isn't it? So 6 weeks.
About 60 days. Yeah, and that's the
I
reason
I do know that Celia did propose an amendment to extend next year's one to 70 days.
Yeah, and that possibly could sit down there and actually tidy up a few things, because that's the other issue we have actually in New Zealand. She might have actually followed it off. It's in the ballot. If we look at the it's in the ballot hat of things here, our biggest issue with general elections is the fact that often we won't know who the candidates are nominated till after nomination day has passed, which is near Writs Day. It's not exactly Writs Day, because often Writs Day is a Sunday. Because Writs Days, it's the Sunday. It's something like this. It's 4 Sundays before the election or something. So Writs Day tends to happen on a Sunday, but nominations tend to close on a Friday. So effectively, you're looking at 6 weeks. You need about 6 weeks' notice to call an election. In recent times, was it Helen Clark called a later election? I think it was about August. She announced it for November in 2008. And I was watching that one because I was turning 18 in October. John Key set a standard of announcing election in January or February, which followed through with Bill English, and followed through with Jacinda Ardern and Chris Hipkins. Well, actually, Jacinda Ardern actually announced the election date before handing over the reins to Chippy. But effectively, we've had a standard of that, but that's not necessarily the case. In Australia, the last general election they had, it was 7 weeks' notice.
Hey, Sam.
Yeah.
$5 super chat. You know what that means?
What, 5 burpees / push-ups /
Yeah. So you carry on. I'm just going to be huffing and puffing in the back.
So while we're talking on the word Celia Way-Brown, let's actually let's hear from our great friend Celia.
Just encouraging members that I'd quite like to give one person several goes, but if they're going to take the full 5 minutes, that becomes very difficult. Celia Way-Brown.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to interrogate the question of age. You've chosen to, or the Minister has chosen to amend the definition of adult, leaving an individual of or over the age of 18 years. And we heard through the evidence in the Justice Committee, which I was enjoyed being part of for that period, that there are a number of questions arose about age, and I'll be interested to see which of these were part of the consideration in choosing to keep it at 18 with some changes. And I have my amendment paper number 475, which you'll be aware of. There are a number of countries, Argentina, Brazil, but the one that I would know best would be Scotland, that now have people voting from the age of 18. Sorry, they have moved from the age of 18 to the age of 16. And there are a number of reasons for this. One is the idea that they are perfectly competent to analyse and vote. Another one is that they have longer to put up with the results of the election, if you like. But the one that really resonated with me in the evidence we had from the independent electoral review of the 2023 elections was from Scotland, where they found that when people voted at 16 or 17, they were more likely to keep voting. That consistency, that commitment to democracy was better exercised by that cohort of younger people. It's an interesting question as to what defines an adult, and I'd be interested in the Minister's reflections on this. Is it when you can get married? Is it when you take a full-time job and you're allowed to leave school at 16? Is it, given we're in New Zealand, when you're allowed to drive, being that one of the great markers of reaching some kind of form of independence? Or is it, as Mr Cameron Brewer's bill about life jackets, you're allowed to make life-saving decisions once you're 15, or in fact, you can skipper a boat at 15. So he's left the age at 18, despite, I think it was a few years ago now, that the Supreme Court ruled that actually saying you could only vote from 18 or over and enrol a little bit earlier so that you'll be ready, as I think the Minister wants us all to be ready to vote and therefore to enrol early. The Supreme Court said that it was unjustified age discrimination not to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote. We had some excellent submissions during the independent electoral review of 2023 and also through the process of select committee, and it was good to actually have a decent chunk of select committee to tease out some of these issues. There are some aspects of this bill that the Green Party, and in particular I, do support, like the automatic enrolments. And we may come to a little bit more discussion about the automatic enrolments. I'm also interested in the potential for how the Minister thinks that these changes are going to be effectively put out there by the Electoral Commission, given I'm not sure that there's been an appropriate increase in the budget for that election. So if you're going to do the same kind of thing, then maybe you can keep the same kind of budget, but if you're making some quite radical change to when you can enrol, is there going to be the funding available for the Commission? Mr Chair.
Helen, Honourable Minister.
Mr Chair, thank you for the comments around the age. Yes, it is not the government's intention to change the voting age. We're retaining it at 18. I do find it rather fascinating hearing a member from the Greens arguing that 16 and 17-year-olds are adults and should be treated that way when it comes to voting purposes. If we were to apply the same logic to the criminal justice system and suggested that 16 and 17-year-olds were adults and should be held with the same responsibility, they would be calling for the intervention of the United Nations and in a state of absolute apoplexy. And so there seemed to be a bit of inconsistency on that matter there. But in terms of the voting age, the bill does not amend the age.
Helen White.
Paul, your arguments are about as terrible as my burpees.
I was just going to say, like, he's just going to talking points on there. It's like he's not having a good faith discussion.
No, and my apologies, Celia Webb Brown. I'm sorry, I was doing burpees during a speech.
All good. Celia will understand.
Yeah, Celia, get it. And I need to do all the burpees I can. But anyways, but let's talk about adulthood in New Zealand, because in New Zealand, you're not actually considered an adult with full rights, right? Until you're about 20. So, yeah. So, I'm just going to go over claim 2, what he said about fascinating. The Greens argue 16 and 17-year-olds are adults. But, yeah, it's a classic tu quoque diversion. So it's
like if you want your right to vote, you have to be able to be charged as an adult.
Yeah, it's
sort of thing. It's like it's like okay, sure, but hey, you can join the military at 17. Why can't they vote? Or let's say a 14-year-old kills someone and is on youth remand and is being charged as an adult. Should they get the right to vote while they're on remand? Because remember, they're being charged as an adult. Should their voting rights kick in while they're on remand?
Yeah,
there's a lot of things. You want to play that game, let's play that game there, Paul Goldsmith. And how would you like to have the next team killer voting against you at the election because you believe, well, if you can be charged for an adult, you should have the right to vote?
Yeah, it's fallacious reasoning. Like, for example, he's conflating two distinct policy areas with different purposes and consequences. Like, the criminal justice, well, at least under national, aims to punish. Under everyone else, it aims to deter and rehabilitate. Age distinctions in that scenario are based on developmental neuroscience, and the principles of youth justice, right, as it currently stands, are focused on rehabilitation. So that's not the same as ticking a box and taking a ballot and putting it in the box, right?
Yeah.
That's all we're doing here. Ticking, putting paper in box. That is not the same as criminal justice.
Well, and here's also the other thing is, so at Pilgrim College, we used to have student recollections. You could vote from year 9 to year 13.
We have youth parliament.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they did turn off live streaming this year. They did turn off live streaming, which I thought was a bit weird. But hey, the first time they did that as well, they turned off the cameras.
But you gotta love Celia's amendments on this one, because not only does she want to lower the voting age to 16, she also wants to lower the age of how old you can be to be an MP to 16 as well. Which is great. It's like ballsy, but going hard. It's like that's. I mean, I so respect that.
Well, that's actually a good point, because did you know when women were given the right to vote, they were not given the right to stand for Parliament until the 1920s.
That is true. Yes.
Now they could stand for local council though, but they couldn't stand for Parliament. And we still get. It wasn't until 1932 or 34. No, actually, might have been 33. Actually. We didn't get our first female MP of Catherine McRae, who, funny enough, only lived 18 months and died, and then her son Terry took over. That was our first widow succession.
Yep.
But put it this way, when we gave women the right to vote, we didn't give them the right to stand for Parliament. Celia has got a damn good point there. Let's lower the voting age to 16 and give 16-year-olds the right to stand.
Well, it's consistency, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
While you go on to the next speech, I'm going to go grab dinner, and then I'll come back. But yeah, you have fun.
Okay, so let's kick over to the third reading speeches here, and we will kick over, and it'll be kicking off on behalf of the Minister from the Honourable James Meagher. We've spent too long in committee of the House because we're meant to become third readings, but yes, Barb's is in the Speaker's chair. So let's kick it off.
No, the ayes have it.
Building Earthquake-Prone Buildings Amendment Bill, first reading.
The question is that the Building Earthquake-Prone Buildings Amendment Bill will be considered by the Transport and Infrastructure Committee. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. I call on Government Order of the Day number 5.
Electoral Amendment Bill, third reading.
Honourable James Meagher.
Madam Speaker, I rise to take a call on the third reading of the Electoral Amendment Bill. Madam Speaker, of course, before I begin, I would like to present a legislative statement to the House.
That legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the Parliament website. Honourable James Meagher.
Madam Speaker, apologies, I got so enthusiastic about making this third reading speech I neglected to
That's all right.
present the legislative statement.
We're all back sorted now. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, of course, as we traversed last week and late night at Parliament, this bill is a bill to make sure that our electoral laws are modern and fit for purpose.
You may
Apologies.
have. Sorry if I've missed it, but I'm just checking.
Apologies, Madam Reader. I move
you.
that the electoral amendment bill be now read a third time. Madam Speaker,
Thank you.
and third time's a charm for my speech. Madam Speaker, this bill aims to make sure that our electoral rules are modern and fit for purpose. Our election laws have a long history, and I'm sure my colleagues in front of me are very enthusiastic to listen to this speech, but have a long history, which means that they can sometimes become outdated. While the core principles guiding elections endure, the how of their delivery needs to adapt over time to keep up with changing trends, new challenges and new technologies. It is important that these are continuously reviewed, and we review the settings to check that they are working well and to act when they are not. The changes in this bill are intended to support timely and efficient elections to uphold integrity in our election rules. Madam Speaker, a key focus of this bill is, of course, timeliness. Over the past few elections, we have seen a dramatic increase in later enrolments and in special votes. These pressures to the system mean it is taking longer and longer and longer to complete the official vote count. It used to take 2 weeks, now it takes 3, and if we don't make changes, it will take even longer in the future. This bill makes several changes to respond to these trends, including closing enrolment 13 days before election day and enabling automatic enrolment updates, something that has been called for by many submitters for many years. These changes generally seek to reduce the number of enrolment transactions and special votes, and to allow post-election processes to begin earlier where possible. The earlier enrolment deadline will reduce immediate pressures on the vote count by allowing special vote processing to begin right after election day. Now, Madam Speaker, this change is necessary to meet the current timeframes for the vote count. Automatic enrolment updates will use government data to update address details on the electoral rolls when an elector has moved. This policy will be implemented over the next few electoral cycles, and over time it should result in more enrolment details being kept up to date between elections, resulting in fewer enrolment transactions during the election period, fewer special votes and faster completion of our electoral process. Madam Speaker, another significant proposal in this bill is to ban sentenced prisoners from voting. Following a recommendation from the Justice Committee for prisoners sentenced to fewer than 3 years, it will only apply for crimes committed after commencement. Madam Speaker, when people show disregard for the law, then there should be consequences for that disregard, including the temporary loss of the right to vote and influence those laws, as endorsed, of course, by the previous government, who also prevented prisoners from voting. That's right. People are only sentenced to prison in New Zealand for serious and often multiple offending. This government believes those offenders need to be held to account for their actions in order to uphold public confidence in our justice and our electoral systems. Once prisoners have served their time, they will be able to enrol to vote again. In the Committee of the Whole House stage, we amended the settings in the bill for people convicted or suspected of a criminal offence who are detained in a hospital or secure facility instead of prison under mental health grounds. The bill now retains the current settings in the Electoral Act last passed by the previous government, where people in these circumstances are only disqualified after being detained for 3 years or more. On reflection, we consider these settings should be retained instead of broadening the eligibility. Madam Speaker, this bill will help to improve the integrity of our elections and improve public trust in our elections by making sure the rules are clear. For example, the bill makes it an offence to provide free food, drink or entertainment near voting places. This change will resolve the confusion which currently exists around the current treating offence by making it crystal clear that you can't give someone food or drink as they are going to vote. Free giveaways have no place near the ballot box if they could lead to improper influence of voters. Madam Speaker, some other changes in the bill include formalising a 12-day advanced voting period to ensure voters have access to this widely used way of voting, removing outdated and costly requirements to send enrolment notifications by post, allowing more flexibility around the contact details that can be included on promoter statements in response to security and safety concerns, something that I would hope that all members across the House could get in behind, and changing the deadline for parties to register to the start of the regulated period to make registration processes more efficient and to provide greater certainty to voters about which parties are eligible to contest the election. Madam Speaker, this is a substantial bill containing more than 30 different policy proposals. I want to acknowledge the work involved in getting it through to the stage, particularly the Justice Committee's contribution, both through the formulation of this bill, but of course its excellent inquiry into the election 2023, which was undertaken later last year, and to the members of the Justice Committee who, as a whole, worked very diligently on that inquiry. I want to also acknowledge the members of the public who submitted both on the bill and the inquiry, which has led to the formulation of those more than 30 policy conclusions. Madam Speaker, this bill will support a more efficient and timely vote count, a more cost-effective and modern way of communicating with voters, more certainty around advanced voting, more clarity around election rules regarding free food and drink, and a more streamlined and fit-for-purpose electoral administration. I commend the bill to the House.
Okay, so now, for those who are wondering, It's in the Ballot did put in a submission for the bill. Now, I will go and read our submission there. Now, this is the one that was presented on behalf of that, and the reason why it was done under It's in the Ballot is so we can get 10 minutes speaking time. I'll just boost this up here. This is the great thing about keeping the document. So under that, we oppose the provisions of, so this is what we as an organisation did, the enrolments of 13 days instead of election day. This would create an unintended disenfranchisement for people turning 18 within 13 days of election. I had a cousin who actually was born, whose birthday was on election day. Voters who moved houses within 6 weeks of an election transferring electorates. The 28-day rule falls within the 13-day period. This would actually create problems with it, and they'll have a special vote in the old electorate. This will also affect prisoners who are around being allowed to vote and sentenced to time served, having their voting rights removed and needing to roll again, and it would also disallow voting. So let's say someone who is sentenced to time served like within 13 days of election day, which can happen. And, this might create havoc with the court system of possibly people not having their sentencing dates and all sorts of things played around with. Voters who thought they were enrolled in the right address and find out on the day they're at the wrong address outside the electorates can update the correct details rather than voting in a place in other electorates from a special vote. Our solutions is to keep the keep the same day enrolment in place and allow agencies to share data. The Electoral Commission already shares data with New Zealand Post on updates, so happy for the data to be spread across other government agencies as long as it's trustworthy data and if the voter is correct, not assumptions. Now, this is an issue that's happened with me. Side note, I've had MSD on multiple occasions remove my PO box without informing me in advance when updating my details. And in one case, caused me to move because a previously violent flatmate discovered my new area of living and would go to letterboxes to sit there and do it. MSD sent my community services card to that letterbox, and I had to move house because of my safety. MSD didn't take part in the complaint. The digital process of the enrolment support, we suggested that enrolment pack information gets sat there and sent by email updates as well as postal. This will reduce the chance of voters not updating their details, so because it will actually let the Electoral Commission know. Happy for the verification process to start earlier for special voting. That would actually make sense. So in that 13-day period, got no problem with the verification part is done, but not the counting of the vote part. But that at least would speed up the time, especially for those special votes that are within that in the earlier part of that 13-day period. And it's the same with overseas, but you've got to keep that period in place for overseas votes. Prisoner voting laws should not change as this would allow a sentence. This will not change as this will allow a sentence during advanced period still to vote. Those sentenced to 2.5 years between elections to still vote, but those removed to a time served or sentenced to less than 1 month to sit there and do it. Some judges could delay sentencing of an offender or purposely do it, depending on the spending of it. Offenders sentenced to time served is a bit of a conundrum under that law because they lose their right to vote and walk out the front door of the courthouse. And their letter to say they've been removed gets sent to the prison, which is kind of very unproductive. We recommend keeping the voting rights at the current 3 years rule in line with the Bill of Rights Act. The previous time we removed prison rights, it was all inconsistent by the courts. Also, there was some clarification to be put in there for treating. As often at Newtown School, there is a polling booth on election day with the weekly fruit and vegetable market, and we don't want to have replacements say under the Consumers Guarantees Act to sit there and do that. Also, scrutineers supporting removing MPs who are currently serving from being scrutineers. That's really pretty much basically a conflict of interest. And the list should be publicly available who scrutineers are for the parties. And also the finance rules. Now, here's the other one is they've lifted the finance rules for anonymous donations from $5,000 to $6,000. However, here's something worth noting for anti-money laundering rules. So if you are basically depositing $10,000 or more cash, whether it was in 1996 or 2025, the $10,000 rule has applied that there has to be a statutory declaration and the anti-money laundering rule that also notifies relevant agencies with it. That has not moved with inflation. If that moves with inflation, it'd probably be $100,000 now. And also that $10,000 rule has been a consistency thing across multiple OECD and Commonwealth countries as well. So, we recommended keeping it at $5,000 because transparency shouldn't be adjusted for inflation. And also tidying up around some of the by-election rules that go up there, as there are two different situations that happen, one in 2023 and one in 2024 to do with one was a death, one was not a death but was a coma. That court basically tidy up the rules in there And I think the Select Committee should have discussed a bit more whether to follow the British approach, which is cancel the election and issue a supplementary election, or follow the American approach, which is if the person is unable to take the seat, then the seat is declared vacant and a new election is called. So that those sorts of things that need to also be in there, and also tidying up a little bit of things that also deals when you have different voting systems in place. When it's STV, it can be a bit more tidier, but I do know that with first past the post, if that vote is excluded, it's gone. So that is something we have done as an organisation on doing bits to improve the bill. Now, did you catch much of what James Meagher said?
Yeah, I mean, I read what he said before tonight's show. Basically, yeah, he accurately states what's in the bill, but he doesn't provide justification for why it's in the bill. Like, and the key weakness in his argument, and I'm going to be saying this a lot, is he admits the contradictory official analysis on rights, efficiency, and process. Sorry, guys. I was busy eating supper suey and I'm burping now. But yes, but yeah, it's like it goes against what's in the RIS. It goes against the Attorney General report. It's just not. It's not a good bill, guys. It's just not.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we get to Ginny Anderson?
Question is that the motion be agreed to. Honourable Ginny Anderson.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The government should be ashamed of this bill. They should be ashamed of this bill because what it does is it makes it harder for New Zealanders to vote. Pure and simple, that's the truth. The process to be able to enrol and vote in the next election will be made harder by this legislation we're debating right now. And even more to the point, Madam Speaker, that a lot of this passed through under urgency, and it is even more reprehensible that a bill that takes away people's rights to vote is being passed under such haste. Democracy is being undermined by this bill. And at a time in the world where we want more people's voices, we want more engagement, we want more of the world to be having a part in democracy, this government takes it upon themselves to make voting even harder for a whole lot of New Zealanders. And it is really concerning that this bill is probably, I think, one of the worst that this government has passed in their time. They've done a lot. So they've scrapped pay equity, 33 pay equity claims gone, but the right to vote, fundamental, it's right up there with some of the worst things this government has done. Number 2 on my list is a treaty principles bill. So bad that National wouldn't even sign up to it, but they still took the country through division up and down the country and caused division and anger in our country. I think this one here, by making it harder for people to vote, is right up there with that one as well. Number 3, I'll put it the regulatory standards bill. This one is so bad that National's going to repeal it. That's how bad it is. The government's going to repeal the legislation. It passed. But I still think that stopping people from enrolling to be able to vote in the early voting period is such a fundamental right that it's worse than the regulatory standards bill. On the same day, this government disestablished the Māori Health Authority as the same day they repealed smoke-free legislation. That was a big day, I remember that day. I think actually that the damage done on that one, comparable to this one as well. And then we've got repealing fair pay agreements and a cost of living crisis when Kiwis can't afford with their wages to pay for food and rent, for shoes, for Christmas presents. This government repealed the ability for getting fair pay. But here, Madam Speaker, taking away the ability for people to vote once they've enrolled in that early voting period is going to be a big impact. We know that there's close to 100,000 New Zealanders who in the last election bowled up to be able to enrol and vote in that period. And the point that has been made, Madam Speaker, which I think is incredibly important, the whole premise of that first speech we heard was somehow timeliness was more important than democracy, that somehow that we've all been held up by the fact that people want to vote and we have to address this alarming problem that so many people want to vote. And this is the answer to that. So we heard from the Electoral Commission in Select Committee that it will not make a lick of a difference. The changes present in this bill will make no difference in the time to count those votes. And the Electoral Commission themselves did not recommend the option adopted by this government. So this is not even going to make a difference. Madam Speaker, I think it's important that we note that the people who are impacted the most by this change, by the people who are going to be impacted the most by not being able to enrol and vote in that early voting period, will be some of the people who have been directly impacted by this government's policies. Those people who have lost a job, those people who have had to shift and move in with someone else because they can't afford their rent, those people who are so focused on the day, the here and now, being able to feed their kids, being able to get some shoes on their feet, to pay for a bus, to pay for petrol, all those day-to-day pressures, those are the things that people are going to be focused on instead of filling out their forms. And for that, they get called a dropkick. People in New Zealand who are struggling to be able to put food on their table, and this government calls them dropkicks for not being able to enrol before 13 days before voting. And the fact that that happens means they can't vote in the upcoming election. I think this begs the question, Madam Speaker, is that why is this government taking the action it is today? Why is it, if we've heard from the Electoral Commission that this will make no real difference in speeding up the vote count, what is the purpose of this legislation today? And my concern, Madam Speaker, is that because it tilts the playing field into their favour. We know that it is those people who have lost their jobs, who have had big changes to their lives from the bad decisions of this government, they're the ones least likely to vote for this government. They are the ones that will be taking action to vote out the bad decisions and the sad choices that this government has taken. And it is for that reason we think that this measure is being taken to prevent those people from exercising their democratic right to vote out a government that is heartless and has only served those who are like themselves and not the rest of New Zealanders. Madam Speaker, I think it's also important to note that this is actually an underhand piece of work. It is screwing the scrum in terms of tilting that in the favour of the government, and it is absolutely undermining that fundamental right of being able to get out and vote. We should have a government here in New Zealand that says we're going to do everything we can to make it easier for people to vote. We like democracy. We like the fact that people vote. We're not into a small group of people who are making decisions on behalf of everyone else that favour those in power and entrenching that power. We actually want to open it up and make sure it's able to be accessible for everyone. But no, that's not what we have today, Madam Speaker. We have someone who's saying, unless you can get your paperwork in order 2 weeks before the election date, you're a dropkick and you can't vote. That's exactly what this government has said, word for word. And the impact this has, Madam Speaker, is going to have an impact for years to come. Because out of the information that we've looked through over this and some of the research in terms of voting behaviour, the number one factor is that what keeps people voting, what keeps people engaged in our democratic process, if they vote in their first election, they are most likely to keep voting for the rest of their lives. And so for an 18-year-old who has turned 18 and hasn't filled out their paperwork or hasn't got the memo from whoever sent it out from the sent it in the post, if that person has not received the information and doesn't know that they need all of that to be in place before they turn up to vote, their very first experience of voting in New Zealand will be being told by an official at a voting booth that they're not eligible to vote. And that is a real concern for undermining the legitimacy of our democracy. A government that is taking action that makes it harder for first-time voters in the next election to be able to get out and have their say. What message does that send to our people? What message does that send to the world what New Zealand stands for? Because we have a small group of people making decisions that tilts the favour into their side. And that is not fair for those people who have suffered at the hands of this government. Madam Speaker, I think that we should be engaging in a program where we look at greater options for encouraging people to vote. We should be putting it not only in our schools, but encouraging people to do all of those things and make it as easy as possible. And even if it did take 1, 2 or 3 days longer, how does that compare to the amount of time negotiating in a coalition agreement? The government's quite happy to take a couple of weeks in there to negotiate, but not prepared to give people a couple of more days to be able to vote in that early voting period. This is a real concern, Madam Speaker, and we know for a fact that there are nearly 134,000 in the last election that changed electoral districts during that same time frame. So that amounts in total to over 200,000 New Zealanders, 231,000 New Zealanders who may be impacted by this change. That's about 8% of the voting population. I think it is absolutely obscene, the fact that this government tries to say that it is achieving a more efficient system, a more time factored in approach. We're all going to be much better off by having a time efficient process, when the reality is that the truth, or what this bill does, is it makes it harder for New Zealanders to get out and vote. And I think this is probably the worst piece of legislation that this sad government has passed, taking power out of the hands of the very people that have the ability to vote. A fundamental part of our democracy is being compromised today by this wrong piece of legislation.
And Gillian is very spot on there on what she's actually sat there and said, because that's literally what's happening. It's taking the power away from the people who, might be voting at the last minute.
Yeah, there are 2 points I just want to go over on that speech. She's correct about what she heard from the Electoral Commission and the Select Committee, that it's not going to make much of a difference because the RIS and the Attorney General report are filled with uncertainty about whether the 13-day rule will speed up the counts. There's not much evidence supporting that it will, and it is fully accurate. She is accurate that the Ministry of Justice officials do not recommend the early closure option. But there is another point I want to go over, and that's the claim that 231,000 New Zealanders who may be impacted by this change, that's about 8% of the voting population.
Yeah.
Now, data-wise, the 231,000 figure from the Attorney General report, 97,000 first time plus 134,000 changed districts. It's correct for 2023. However, extrapolating this to 8% of the voting population is misleading because it conflates people who use late enrolment services with people who will definitely be prevented from voting. So it's just little stats like that we need to be careful with when we're doing quite passionate speeches. I'm not quite sure how she reached that from the available data, but yeah, apart from that, it's a pretty good speech.
Okay, let's get to Celia Wade-Brown.
Madam Speaker.
Celia Wade-Brown.
I rise to speak in the third reading of this appalling piece of legislation. This bill could affect the next election. In less than 12 months, I say the sooner the better. If voting didn't matter, then there wouldn't be so many people trying to influence it. If voting didn't matter, we wouldn't have some shadowy figures trying to influence elections from America to Aotearoa. And if voting didn't matter, perhaps this coalition government would not be rolling back the franchise, reducing the ease and simplicity of voting when people have got used to being able to change their details at the last minute. Who is this democracy for? Or who is this economy for? And are they related? With the increasing employment that we have seen in the most recent fact sheet, unemployment going up, still up, there doesn't seem to be a corner in this roundabout, 5.3% on average, Māori unemployment up to 10.5%, youth not in employment, education or training at a whopping 13.8%. The economy isn't working for these people. It might be working for the 1%, but these people are eligible voters who probably won't be voting for the other side of the House. Justice officials said that closing enrolments ahead of advanced voting would result in lower turnout and reduce confidence in the electoral system. Electoral law experts are questioning why the changes need to stretch to the whole advanced voting period. I want to quote from the Human Rights Commission. The right to vote is a foundational right under the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It is a cornerstone of democratic participation, and the bill proposes significant limitations on the right to vote. How you can cast a vote on behalf of the Attorney General, the Honourable Judith Collins, who said that this breached the Bill of Rights in 4 different ways, I don't know. So, just in case you hadn't realised, the Green Party strongly opposes this bill. We think you are taking voting away from the unemployed, away from prisoners, away from people who are transient, and advantaging those who are wealthy and sorted and don't move from emergency housing to cars, to council housing, to other places as often. And the Electoral Commission, as the previous speaker said, they advise the earlier deadline will not necessarily enable quicker vote count for the 2026 general election. And I note that the Minister, when he introduced, I think, the second reading, was talking about how much worse it might be in 2029 or 2032 or further ahead. But one of the few good things that this bill does is that it allows automatic enrolment updates. So why don't we just breeze through 2026 and watch for those updates, improving the timeliness of the bill, the timeliness of the special vote count afterwards? That would be one answer. You could extend the period after which there needs to be a decision by the Governor-General on what would constitute the new government. You can make it 5 days longer, 10 days longer. If you actually look at other countries that have a more mature MMP system, sometimes their coalition discussions do take a little longer. That might not meet the managerial ambitions of this government, but it would be perfectly reasonable from a democratic point of view. I want to touch on a couple of other things. We also tried through the committee stage, we tried through the select committee and then the committee stage here in the House to make some changes. First of all, there are several recommendations from the Independent Electoral Review. One is very solid, that 17 and 18-year-olds ought to be able to vote. Agreed by the Supreme Court of New Zealand that it is age discrimination not to allow them to vote. The clear evidence shows that if people vote in that 16, 17-year-old age group, they are more likely to continue to vote. We heard that from Scotland in clear evidence. So we wanted to change that. We also wanted to make an exception for providing food and drink at a marae. Manaakitanga has been going longer than the Westminster voting style. We think it's unreasonable. Nobody's saying, oh, you can only get a sausage roll, or you can only get some hummus, or you can only get some very healthy food. If you vote for the Greens or Te Pāti Māori or National or
you can get vegan donuts if you
just
vote.
saying, come, be part of the day, be appreciated for actually taking your democratic right. So we tried to change that. Then the last thing that we tried to change was the disclosure. $6,000 secret donation. $6,000 might not seem a lot to the wealthy and sorted, but $6,000 is a lot of money to the average New Zealander. We think that the disclosure regime should be reduced significantly. We proposed $1,000, but frankly, I'd be happy with $200 disclosure. Why are people scared of saying or putting their mouth where their money is to turn it around? We also wanted to limit who can make donations, so that it is corporations are not able to make donations. If you actually look at where companies, particularly but not only extractive companies, unions, sometimes they say they're unions and I would doubt it, sometimes they're real unions. Why don't we just limit the donations to real human voters? I feel like I should be doing a capture thing. When you do your vote, when you do your donation, should you be filling in that capture thing where you say which picture is a bus or which picture is a bicycle, just to prove you are a real human being? Well, I think that democracy is best served by making sure that more people can vote, that prisoners do not suffer double jeopardy, that transient people are not discriminated against, and that people are not bought by large, undisclosed donations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, she's like that in person as well.
I love the fact that she's like, doing it. Prove that I'm a human to do donations. I love it.
Yeah. Look, I know people are going to say, Laura, you're woke. Of course you agree with her, and you're friends with Celia, so of course you agree with her. But look, I can also throw criticism at my friends because what is a friend if you can't criticize them? Anyways, okay. So she brought up double jeopardy, and Todd Stevens. Oh fuck! I hate saying he's right on this, but Celia does use the word double jeopardy incorrectly. But who the fuck cares? The bill's bad, and everything else.
And ears perk up.
Yeah.
Some people might go, oh, great, turn off. Wait. She said the word double jeopardy. I must listen.
Yeah, it does. Whoa, we got to hone on that one. But look, who cares whether she used the right legal term there or not? What matters is that the Junior Eternal, we have bipartisan support with Judith Collins that this bill is cooked. We agree with Judith Collins over here. Yes, and the fact that it actually does violate the Bill of Rights. So that's worse than pointing out whether or not double jeopardy was used correctly or whatever. I know Todd Stevenson really focuses on that point quite a bit in his speech, but it's just like, bro, who cares? Look at the bigger argument that she's presenting forward. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do like this one. If you cannot vote, then you should not be able to donate. And actually, it's quite an interesting thing on there. This ain't with this ain't with donating, but this is with voting. When we first had our first New Zealand Governor General, it was brought up as whether there would be a constitutional conflict for the Governor General to be enrolled to vote in New Zealand, because historically, at the time, all our Governor Generals were appointed from the UK, so they were as the representatives on behalf of the Crown. So they weren't on the New Zealand electoral rolls. Now, in the UK, the Royals, what's called convention, it's not law, but they by convention, they don't vote. They don't vote, they stay politically neutral. And that, in some theory, should be the case in New Zealand for the Governor General. I can tell you right now, with New Zealand Governor Generals, we don't have that. I have a gut feeling which way our current Governor General votes, and I don't think it's in line with the current government, considering where her views and her standpoints have stood in the past. When she was Children's Commissioner, you do see. I don't see her supporting the current government. But besides the point, that was something that was brought up about, should you be allowed to enroll to vote on the electoral roll if you're the person whose signature is on all the laws?
I'm just boggled that. I mean, Judith Collins, it's like Judith Collins versus Judith Collins when you're reading through these general attorney reports. But it's like everyone here is like saying, oh, if you cannot vote, then you should not be able to donate. My goodness, it's like chat agrees with all the amendments that Celia Wade-Brown has.
It's like also like, I mean, here's the other one is like, should donation limits, aka transparency, sit there and be adjusted with inflation, considering anti-money laundering is not, such as like the $10,000 limit for bringing cash into New Zealand was like that in the 90s. Like, I had to ring up Martin Jenkins to find out, and he goes, in the 90s, yes, and that could be even before then.
Yeah.
So the $10,000 anti-money laundering rule has been, that you can bring no more than $10,000 worth of cash into the country at one time. So I mean, here's also something else in there. It's like if you bank transfer more than 10 grand, your bank has to note the transaction to report that to the authorities to say, oh, you sent 15 grand to this person.
Did you go over the amendment voting? Because there was a really good amendment put forward by Celia, and I like people go, oh, of course you say it's good because you're woke and you're green.
No, we didn't get that far down the speeches, no.
But anyways, I just want to go over it. It's Amendment 483, and basically what it would do was restrict party donations to individual New Zealand citizens that are enrolled to vote. So like what everyone was saying, if you're not enrolled to vote, then you can't donate. It would have banned all organisational donations, anonymous donations, overseas donations for people that are not New Zealand citizens, and straw donor schemes. So that's acting as a conduit for money from someone else who is not allowed to donate.
It's such as saying, what do you call it? Nigel Farage sending me 50 grand to donate to ACT.
Yeah, I think it speaks absolute volume.
Well, I think that's a good example to use, Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
our audience know, we all know who Nigel is.
Yeah,
Yeah, we all know who Nigel is.
He's the frog man from the UK.
Money to donate it to the ACT Party. And actually, that's where Nigel Farage probably would donate his money if he was pumping money into the New Zealand electoral system.
I actually think he would probably give that to New Zealand First.
Oh, okay.
I think they're actually more aligned than he is with ACT. But anyways, I think it speaks volumes that this government doesn't want to take action against lobbying.
Yeah.
When an amendment was put out there that would have fitted quite nicely with this bill, right? It wouldn't have changed the bill. It just would have said, "Hey, we're going to restrict we're going to restrict the way how donations are done. It has to be done by individuals. And it's going to be transparent." Right? Yeah. They said, "Nah, we don't want that."
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's get on to Todd Stevenson.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise on behalf of ACT to speak in the third reading of the Electoral Amendment Bill. Can I just start by saying, please, members, go and actually Google what double jeopardy is, because it was misused in the House tonight. It was misused a number of times in the Select Committee. Please don't use the term if you're not sure what it means. It's probably better you don't. What I wanted to say tonight is, on this side of the House, we actually have a positive vision for New Zealand. We actually want to lift up New Zealanders. We want to educate them. We want to deliver them high-paying jobs. And what we also believe is that they're capable of enrolling to elect. It is a legal requirement. Let me repeat that. It's a legal requirement to be enrolled once you turn 18 years of age. No one's rights are being removed. No one's rights are being taken away. All we are doing is clarifying
you sure about that?
That you need to be enrolled before the election, 13 days, which you should already be done if you have turned 18 years of age.
The prisoners.
So, again, you can go to the Select Committee report, read on what some of the issues were, but if you look at page 10, it talks very clearly about why the Electoral Commission is telling us it takes 10 times, let me repeat that, 10 times longer to process a special vote. They then go on to say about population increases, the number of special votes they're projected, saying that we could end up with 1 million special votes. We are actually restoring integrity to our election system, Madam Speaker, and making sure people can have confidence that people are eligible to vote, they are enrolled to vote, and the vote count can be done in a timely manner. I'm very much looking forward to these changes being put in place. New Zealanders, we can reinforce to New Zealanders their legal obligation, Madam Speaker, to be enrolled when they're 18, and let's get on with the sensible changes. I commend the bill to the House.
Well, congratulations, Todd. Here's your imaginary cookie for getting double jeopardy correct. But look, the claim that he put forward that no one's rights are being removed, no one's rights are being taken away, where all we're doing is clarifying you need to be enrolled 13 days before the election, it's legally incorrect. So I don't care if he stands up and says, "Oh, she got double jeopardy wrong." Bro, you haven't even read, I don't even think he's read the Attorney General's report.
Who knows? And actually, I wonder, when he was in Australia for all these years, because you remember, he has not lived in New Zealand until 2023 for quite a substantial point of his life. Was he still enrolled to vote in New Zealand elections during that period of time? Because, you know, he has not lived in the country until 2023 after being headhunted by David Seymour to come back. You know, he worked in the pharmaceuticals industry for an Australian drug company. You know, and we don't have drug manufacturers in New Zealand. Hence, you know, it makes sense why he was in Australia. And he would have been special voting from Australia in all those elections.
But he's a lawyer. He should be able to accurately go over what the bill does and what it doesn't do from a legal standpoint. And the fact that he got that part wrong, the fact that it actually goes over, you know, the fact that the Attorney General's report says that the 13-day deadline appears to be inconsistent with the right to vote in Section 12 of the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act.
This, Simon, no, he was born in New Zealand and educated in New Zealand. It's only his adult life he's been in Australia.
Yes. But the fact that he couldn't accurately recite what Judith Collins found, right, and the fact that it goes against the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act is a bit disturbing. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to Uncle Andy. This will be interesting.
Andy Foster.
Madam Speaker, I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to speak in support of this legislation. This bill arises from years of debate about how to keep our electoral system fair, transparent and more trusted. What this bill does is it strengthens the rules around enrolment, and I'll come back to that in a moment, but also around donations and advertising. And during the second reading debate, I particularly referred to the situation at the Manarewa Marae, which this bill directly addresses, which is to say we cannot have people providing food, drink, whatever, within a few metres of a voting booth, because that is something which undermines the integrity of the voting system, because it suggests that people's votes can be influenced or bought by the treating. And that's why we don't allow for that, and that is why this bill makes a change to that particular situation. Madam Speaker, we were lectured in the early part of this debate by the Honourable Ginny Anderson, who talked about disenfranchising people, and it didn't seem to matter to her how long it takes to get a result. And we've heard from Todd Stevenson just now. We're on track by projection in the next 2 elections to get to 1 million special votes, which take more than 10 times the length of time to process. What that means is that increasingly we will not be in a position, if we don't make changes, to get a result not only on election night, but possibly for a long time thereafter. That is not about making sure that New Zealanders can wake up and say, actually, we know who our government is following an election, and that is something that is a really important outcome of any election. Madam Speaker, we also heard a lot from Jenny Anderson about disenfranchising people. I think the number she said was 134,000 people would move house in the sort of the 2-week period before an election. Well, if you take that on the basis of taking that across a year, that equates to nearly 3.5 million New Zealanders would move house in a year. Now, I know that some of her maths is a bit sketchy at times, but that does seem a very, very far-fetched assertion. What she said is we're disenfranchising people. Well, actually, no. If you look at the Electoral Commission's website, you can enrol or register to enrol at 17. It says, if you're 17, you can fill out an enrolment form now. On your 18th birthday, we'll automatically enrol you and you'll still be ready to vote. So how hard for somebody who's 17 is it to be able to say, I'm going to register to vote a year out from the election, and then they'll automatically put me on there and then I can vote? That's fine.
Hard if they
And there's
don't
the other
know
thing
about
about all these people who aren't on the electoral roll. Well, actually, the other thing the Electoral Commission says is if you're eligible, you must enrol. In other words, those people have effectively broken the law by not enrolling for that period of time if they are over 18. So we've got the 17-year-olds who can vote when they become 18, they're covered, and all the above 18s, the over 18s are also covered. So I think that the comments which are being made about disenfranchising a lot of people, you really have to question. So, Madam Speaker, I think that this is simply a good piece of legislation. It's about trying to make sure that we get a decent election result at the end of the election process, not weeks and weeks up thereafter, and it gives people some confidence in the electoral system, and I commend this bill to the House.
Okay, so that was from the New Zealand Flip-Flop Party, because we know what's going to happen.
Notice one thing. He never said anything about Celia.
No, he didn't.
All his attacks was on Ginny, not on Celia.
Yeah. We
And
don't
I'd probably say that is, I'd say that is partly, like, he's been known to attack the Greens, but he doesn't attack Celia. And I think that's from the working relationship from when Celia was mayor and a councillor alongside Andy Foster.
Yeah, quite likely.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, my guy, please. God, I lost my track of thought because you jumped in. But,
yeah, I mean, here's the other thing. Is like, talking about like delaying the bill. While there's another bill going through Parliament to get rid of the 28-day rule for caretaker governments.
Okay, right. I got my thought back. There we go. Yeah. So the reason I know New Zealand First voters who watch the show are going to get offended when I say the flip-flop party, but it's true. When they form a coalition with Labour or National, they seem to vote against the stuff that they supported in the past. Like they're already talking about reversing back on their vote with the Regulatory Standards Bill, right? And they'll probably do the same with this one. I guarantee it. But anyways, let's look over the claim that that Andy said about Ginny. Okay, so pre-enrollments at 17. This claim, right?
Yeah, but like you can't enroll online unless you've got a passport or driver's license.
Yeah.
So if you don't have either, you can't enroll with student ID. You can't enroll with an 18 plus card.
Yeah, I mean,
so you have to do a paper form anyway.
Yes, I was going to say. His claim, this is addressing first-time voters, not the 231,000 people, right, who need to update their details in the 2023 voting period. It's irrelevant to the main impacted group, which is existing voters who move.
Exactly. It's not like every 17-year-old has one of these on them.
That's right.
And I mean, yes, I had that on. Well, actually, I had a full license when I was 17. You can't do that now because they changed the law. But that was the law at the time when I had my driver's license. Yes, that was the law.
Yeah, and I think that's where Andy is actually operating from. I don't think he's necessarily aware of like every single law change that's occurred since he was 17. But anyways, he made a claim that you have the duty to enroll. If you don't meet the new stricter deadline, you failed your duty and you'll be disenfranchised. It's just like, it ignores the Attorney General's reports finding that changing the long-standing rules upon which people have relied, again, not a woke person, we're talking about Judith Collins' report, have relied causes or is the cause, it causes disenfranchisement, right? So changing the long-standing rules upon which people have relied on causes disenfranchisement. There we go. It blames individuals for not anticipating a legal change that restricts their previous flexibility. So again, the problem is, all these people are too dumb to enroll or whatever. It's like, no. It's because there's a habit, right? And if you don't advertise strongly, especially to kids, 17 going on 18, especially to Māori, especially to the disabled, especially, they're going to go to the they're going to go to the polling booth on the day, right?
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Shit,
Right. I know when I was getting people to enroll to vote, they didn't ask me, can you please hand me a ballot paper? Like some people can't sit down there and, I think it's 21 days to announce a government under the MAP rules.
I'm not quite sure what that's referring to. I thought that maybe you'd be able to know.
I don't know, because this one's come up from Kiwibirb. They need some legislation. This one here was from Kiwibirb. Needs some legislation on how long it could take to sit and form a coalition after the election. Well, actually, the one thing is in there is under the Constitutional Act of 1986. A caretaker government cannot be in for more than 28 days after an election unless if they are in a situation, they have to be re-sworn in. Twice since that law has been put in place, it has been enacted, and one of them was in 1996, and the other time was in 2023. And the current government have got a bill in Parliament to abolish that 28-day rule. And that 28-day rule is a check to make sure that you haven't got a drunk like Muldoon refusing to hand over power. That is the reason why that law was put in place.
Okay, we're at 10 past 10, so...
Should we keep going? I think Timothy Paul, Hannah Rafferty, might be Clark, might be good to speeches before we call it quits, and I'd love to see what Mr. Goldsmith's got to say at the end.
Okay, that's going to be like, what, an extra 40 minutes?
Oh, I'll probably say 20. The next two speeches are only 5 minutes.
Okay, my cat's starting to play up now.
Madam Speaker, in my maiden speech I talked about my kuia from Ngāti Puke called Marianne Mackay, and she sat outside the steps of Parliament petitioning the Premier to return our confiscated lands. And she lost her life due to the pneumonia that she got. You'll see how this connects in a minute, Madam Speaker. She lost her life waiting to meet with the Premier because at the time women did not have the vote. So this was her way of participating in democracy. And her obituary said, Mrs. Stewart's end may be said to have been hastened by the relentless cruelty and injustice of the government to herself and her family. Her death warns my people of the consequences of limiting participation in democracy. Her illness and death came about not just because she was a woman who died 14 years before women had the vote, but because she was also Māori. Denying a person the opportunity to shape the rules that govern their lives is oppression. Denying a person the ability to participate in choosing who their leaders are sows the seeds for dissent. Voter suppression is not always explicit, but this bill is not just voter suppression, it is a threat to our democracy. For the first general elections in Aotearoa, there was blatant Māori voter suppression, and this bill harks back to that era. For the first general elections, large rural areas where Māori lived were not included in the electorates. There were polling places only in Pākehā settlements, and only Māori who held individual land title were allowed to participate, despite the fact that Māori owned land collectively. So in the first election, 100 Māori voted out of more than 5,000 eligible electors. That's because Māori could not vote, not because the Constitution at the time explicitly barred Māori from voting, but because the Constitution made no space for our people and our way of life, exactly what this bill does. But when they did eventually let us vote, they used it as a tool or maybe a weapon to assimilate us into Pākehā culture. And the reason why we didn't have the vote was because English colonists said that Māori were not civilised enough to exercise such an important responsibility.
Wow.
It wasn't just Māori who were disenfranchised from our democracy, but it was women too. The reason I bring up this whakapapa is because there are threads in this bill that relate back to suppression of large groups in our society, whether that be Māori or whether that be women. Women were meant to stay home and look after the kids while leaving politics to the men. Women were told that political involvement would unsex women and destroy their lovableness. But the right to vote is something that we have fought hard for, both women and Māori, and it is something that we should never ever take for granted. The right to vote is not something that was won overnight. It was not something that was simply given to us. It is something that we had to take for ourselves. Therefore, we in this House have an obligation to fight for those who will be disenfranchised from this bill. Now, I want to talk about voting as a human right, because this bill reinstates a blanket ban for people in prison from voting. And this quote says, "If the meanest man in the Republic is deprived of his rights, then every man in the Republic is deprived of his rights." Besides the point that a blanket ban totally contradicts the principles of rehabilitation and reintegration, which is what our correctional system supposes it's about, it also sets up a responsibility framework in order to vote. But the thing about human rights is that you aren't rewarded human rights based on good behaviour, and you have human rights by virtue of being a human being. It becomes extremely dangerous when you have a person, in this case Paul Goldsmith, who is the arbiter of who is and isn't allowed access to their human rights. And that's the first thing I learnt about human rights in university, is that they are universal. They are indivisible and they are interdependent on each other. You can't pick and choose which human rights some people have and some people don't. We all have them because we are all the same thing, human beings. And you can't weaken any human right without expecting there to be a flow-on, weakening effect on other human rights. A right is not what someone gives you, it is something that nobody can take away from you. In other countries around the world, Madam Speaker, people will be shot for going to the ballot box. And here we are today, where we should be enhancing people's participation and making voting more accessible, yet we are denying 58,000 plus people, including rangatahi Māori, from voting, and that is a shame on this House.
And Timothy is completely right on that particular point about, you know, a right is something you don't earn for good behaviour.
No, and that's the fundamental.
And people keep conflating. Well, you only get it if you sit there and do what I tell you to do. No. Rights aren't sit there and do it. I remember I had a dispute over one thing. My due process rights were taken away because I was misbehaving. You know, should we just say using domestic violence because I was accused of misbehaving isn't a good result? You know? And what made it worse was it was over a false accusation.
Yeah.
Company, non-stop solutions, where the false accuser is always right, even when the court evidence proves them wrong. You know, and they equated, like, you know, and including I got given 3 retaliatorial punishments that day after my due process rights were taken away. So, you know, and Tamford's being smack on that point there about saying, you know, you can't just, you can't take away rights when you're taking away rights and treating them as privileges. You know, a right to vote, a right to due process. That is not something you yank away just because you sit there and do it. Otherwise, if you want to sit there and do it, work for the Department of ICE in the United States. That's what they're doing right now.
Yep.
You know, if you want to sit there, if you think rights are optional, you're in the wrong industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, I mean, when she brought up what people in power were saying about Māori back in the days, it's like, holy crap, are these people like the ancestors of Nick Fuentes or something?
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
who are these cooked people, man?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you know, rights aren't optional. You know, if your right to vote is suddenly an optional extra, like having no ice or having extra ice with your soft drink at McDonald's, like is that like that's what they're equating it to, or like an optional extra on your Visa credit card?
So, yeah, it's like not civilized enough to vote. I'm sorry, do I need to stick my pinky out when I drink something out of a mug?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's you know, and that's definitely right. You know, there are people out there who have that mindset of, you know, something that is a right is an optional extra when it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't yank away people's rights. You know, like, put it this way: if you believe a right should be taken away based on that, would you like the same thing done to you? Because quite often those who take away rights from others don't like it when that person they've taken away their rights tries to take them in retaliation.
Oh, the golden rule, we all know this, right? When you get like a certain demographic of social conservative Christians, right?
Yeah.
The golden rule doesn't apply to working class folks. It applies to folks that they view as their peers.
Yes, yes.
It's like, I know because I grew up around that environment before getting the woke mind virus. But anyways.
I like that. Having a useless minister should be optional. Yes.
I agree.
Yes. Unfortunately, there's too many of them in this government.
Yep.
Well, every government has them, but this one seems to have more than its fair share of incompetence. Okay, let's get to our youngest MP, Hana Rafiti Maipi Clark.
Hana Rafiti Maipi Clark. Tēnā rā koe te whika o tira, tēnā rā tātou. E te whare e tu ana hau ki te waha i ngā kōrero mō te Pāti Māori i te pōnei. Me taku kaha whakahe i tēnei pire. Nā runga anō i te mea he wahine a hau, he tangata whenua a hau, wai hoki he rangatahi hoki. Me te mea anō era āhuatanga e toru, koira te ngako o tōku tai mai ki konei ki tēnei whare. Konei te orokohanga i taku tainga mai ki tēnei whare ki te tū hei mema poti mō hauraki Waikato. And Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, that is what me and Tamitha represent in this House, is young Māori wahine. And for ourselves and who we represent, unfortunately, are kept out of these democracy processes. And we represent our constituents that I've had engagements with across the motu who, I guess those stories that I wouldn't really want to share in here, but stories of if I feel like you two are in here, I feel like I have a voice in this parliament, and making sure that they still have accessibility to voting. And essentially this is what this bill makes it harder for rangatahi, for wahine, for people who feel like they don't feel a part of these democracy system processes. This bill shuts down enrolment and updates 13 days before election day, right when many people finally engage, finally get organised and finally make time. And we already know who that hits. In the 2023 general election, the Electoral Commission reported official turnout was 78.2%. Turnout for voters of Māori descent across general and Māori rolls were 70.3%, and turnout for voters on the Māori roll was 68%. Those are not lazy voters. Those are voters navigating structural barriers, poverty, unstable housing, shift work, caregiving, digital exclusion, and systems that were never designed around Māori realities. And the kicker is the government is using backlog from special votes as its excuse, yet the reason special votes were high in 2023 is because over 230,000 people enrolled or changed details during that election period. That's not a problem to punish, that's democracy in action. And we have seen a huge turnover of especially young voters under 40. 70% of the Māori population is under 40. Actually changed to the Māori roll. Even the Attorney General warned that 100,000 or more people could be directly or indirectly disenfranchised by these changes. Just as Tamitha was talking about her kuia coming to bring a petition here to Parliament, so did also my kuia Hana Tihemara in the Te Reo Māori petition in 1972. And it comes as huge responsibility to make sure that we represent those who are voiceless outside of this House, and who we represent to make sure those barriers are not in place for them, and making sure that they are able to participate in our democracy. So when I'm talking about women, when I'm talking about young people, and when I'm talking about Māori, Pacifica, Asian, this is the bill that directly affects them. When I also think of young people left out, the Electoral Commission found that for 18 to 24-year-olds in 2023 was 74.2%, and turnout for 18 to 24-year-old voters for Māori descent was 70.3%. So spare us the stereotypes about rangatahi not caring. They do care when we invite them in and when they see themselves in these spaces. So there's going to be more of me and Tamitha's come 2026. And Māori are already underserved by the system. Wahine fought to be recognised in the system, and rangatahi are told to care about the future but denied a say in it. The choice in front of the House, Madam Speaker, is that democracy is not a convincing...
The member's time has expired. Katie Nimmin.
Damn, that was a good speech. Why'd you cut her off like that?
Probably because she was over her 5-minute time limit.
Oh, well, that sucks. But anyway, I detected no lies in that speech. That was a good speech. All factually correct. Like I do try to find, where someone can be wrong. I did it for Celia, but yeah, it's like she's correct. Like she accurately went over what was said in the Riz and went over what the Attorney General said. Yeah, and by the way, I don't know if anyone caught that, but my cat literally just jumped down onto my keyboard and then, just
in the middle of it,
cat things. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, let's get to Paul Goldsmith for the final speech, because he finally makes it to the House.
Oh, so he didn't even listen to any of the speeches. Okay.
Requiring people to be enrolled 13 days before the election. And this, according to Duncan Webb and everybody else, is near the end of the world. I will just remind people who are tuning in. In Australia, you need to be enrolled 26 days before the election. And the world hasn't come to an end. In the UK, it's about 13 days. And they say, that's because voter enrolment's compulsory. Enrolment is compulsory in New Zealand as well. When the previous government changed the rules and allowed same-day electoral enrolment, the advice from the officials back in 2020 was that is going to lead to a longer vote count. And lo and behold, that's precisely what happened. And so we went from 2 weeks to 3 weeks, and the advice that I had, if we did nothing, it would be 4 weeks before we knew it. And New Zealanders need to get an outcome. And so what we're doing is asking people, we're fixing the basics, and we're going to get giving people a year to get themselves enrolled, and we're very confident that they will be able to do that. Because we have no doubt that an electoral commission which has a big budget, has a big focus, and it is their focus to get as many people enrolled by writ day, and therefore we can have a fast and efficient count and get on with the next government. I reject any of the suggestions that when Labor changes the electoral rules, that's fine, everything's fine, but when National changes it's terrible, because that is a misrepresentation of what's going on. And on that basis, Madam Chair, I commit this bill to the House.
Buddy, your problems are with Judith Collins. It ain't with the opposition, it's with Judith.
And it's not the fact, like, your rule changes are disenfranchisement. Disenfranchisement is bad. Stating that, if Labor enfranchises people, it's a bad thing according to National. It's like, what do you call it? It's like, if you're a National voter, you shouldn't get an ambulance. If you need one, you should only get it if it's Labor. That is, that would be seen as disenfranchisement, and that's what you're comparing it to. It's like if you're providing the ability for people to enrol and vote properly and have the methods in place, that is a better outcome than it is to sit down there and go, yes, do a special vote, and yes, sorry, you're not enrolled. Your vote is discarded. That's not enfranchisement.
I just don't understand where Paul Goldsmith is coming from with his reasoning. Like before, he was saying everyone has a civic duty to be enrolled to vote and go vote. Okay, cool. Meanwhile, he's making it harder for people to uphold their civic duty.
Yeah.
Like
I know.
Don't you want to make it easier for people to uphold their civic duty?
I know. Exactly. And it's like, and they've seen like the boom of submissions coming in and all sorts of things. It's like, I've got to admit, on the constitutional amendment bill changes, I was the only person who did an oral submission. I even thought Sir Geoffrey Palmer would have done one, but he didn't.
Yeah. I just look, for people that are going, you're woke, Laura, I'm not going to listen to you. Okay, fine, don't listen to me. But go listen to Judith Collins. Go read the Attorney General report. Please, I beg of you. She's not a woke lady. She even said herself she's not woke. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we will end the poll that we had on there. Which Sunday should we return the Order Paper podcast? And the winning poll number is of 42% of votes cast for Sunday the 4th of January, which is 2 Sundays away.
Thank you. Oh, that's all I got to say to the chat. Thank you. I get a 2-week holiday. Thank you.
Yeah, because, it's interesting which dates have come up on there. I do know the Leftist Collective has a date of Sunday the 11th.
Yep.
But yes, no, you're not going to have me next Sunday. God, no. However, we will continue. I'll be having a lot of fun sitting down there going through and editing videos to make sure that shows like this keep popping up over the same period of time so that you can still see our content over the period. Yeah.
Yep.
So, next year, any comments you would like to... What would you like to see happen in the next 12 months?
For the show or
government?
For the show or for me?
Oh, I was going to say, well, you can say for the show, actually. It might be a better one than say for you, because I think we know that you probably want change of government, but we also know that you've got a lot of fun in your role within the Greens about candidates.
Yeah. Okay. So, what change would I like to see for the show? I want to see more engagement. I would love to have our content be seen by more people. I would like to understand how to be better at marketing and better at communicating so we can get more engagement. I think everyone enjoyed the push-up challenge thingamajig that I did with the super chats.
Yeah.
I think people like seeing other people get tortured, which is great. We'll do more of that. You can help me keep fit by sending in your super chats. And I'm going to be and I'm going to be needing your help after Christmas. So keep sending in the super chats, and I will keep doing burpees and push-ups.
Yeah, oh God, I really need to. I need to get hold of someone for trying to sit down there and see if I can get a coffee cart somewhere, because I've got nowhere between Christmas and New Year at the moment to earn an income. So, yeah, I'm going to have a lot of fun on that one. So, yes.
How is your coffee cart doing? Like, are you going to be planning on like doing any painting of it or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, I am planning to give it a repaint. So the toilet paint is sitting in the storage garage. So I am planning to give it a bit of a paint job.
Yes, good on you. Okay.
Yeah. So no, that is on the cards. And
what about the pool noodles?
The pool noodle that was put in there as a safety recommendation by the Fox and Easter Fair, so that people don't knock their heads on my roof, or if they knock their heads, it's not as sharp.
Oh, okay. So it was actually okay. All right, I got you now.
Right,
okay.
Did your mum mention the pool noodle?
She did. She's like, I don't get it. I'm like, neither do I. I'll have to ask Sam.
Yeah, no, and I put it on there. And two other storeholders go, oh my God, it's like, yeah, they're like $4 at Bunnings. And I like go like, yeah, okay, I'm going to get one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a tricky one because it's like, you are correct. A lot of people do watch Kiwi Pulse. And
but also a lot of people don't have the time to do it either.
That's right. So
yeah.
I think the route for engagement is just keep breaking down the bills. I know that we appeal to a niche audience, people who are interested in policy,
like the Gary Charles of the world.
Yeah, which is a very unique demographic of society, and we will keep producing content for you guys because everyone deserves to understand how bills work. Exactly. It used to do my head in when people would go, "Oh, I voted for this party based on vibes. I didn't read the policy because I didn't know how to read it." So I am very aware that a lot of it is policy wonkery. Like, you got bad names for bills, you got bad bills, you got
your bills that actually make the name doesn't really sum up the bill at all.
Yeah. It's things like that. So I do try to go over each speech and try to simplify what it is they're saying.
Yeah.
But it is. I agree. I get it. It's not short and pithy like what BHM does, where they do like a review of the news article, which is already short and pithy. A short pithy breakdown of what's already happened,
Yeah, we're not into that. Now here's actually a bit of a sneak preview of what will be coming up. So we've decided, as your treat on the 27th, is an onslaught of Nicola Willis and her select committee reminders, including we have got this lovely clip here. Now, what is it called? I'm not sure if it might not come through the speakers. Actually, no. I've got a way I can actually load it in. It's all right. It'll take a little while, but it will load in there. But effectively, so these are clips that are timed, ready to go out on the 27th, which is focusing on Nicola Willis. Okay, so here's what the clip is called. So this is what every video of those, most of the videos have this on there. So this was created today. So I'll just play it.
Politicians have gone on holiday, but the outrage they cause still goes on. Politicians have gone on holiday, but the outrage they cause still goes on.
What do you think?
He seems to have trouble hitting the high. AI seems to have trouble hitting those high notes.
Oh yeah. I know. But it quite happily sums it up.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be on there because the thing is, the outrage still goes on even when they go on holiday. And think for this, they're on holiday to Auckland anniversary weekend, so they aren't going to be passing any laws.
Have you seen that? Speaking of AI, have you seen that? Oh crap! That song called "We Are Charlie Kirk." It's so bad. It's horrendous.
Oh god!
But it's gone viral as a meme.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, here's something we got to do before we go.
Okay.
It's holiday time. It's time to write out your submissions on bills. Land Transport Revenue Amendment Bill closes on Thursday, the 8th of January. The Building and Construction Sector's Strengthening and Operational Licensing bill closes on Thursday, the 8th of January. Another building, self-certification by plumbers and drain layers, closes on the 8th of January. The Racing Industry Closure of Greyhounds Racing Industry Amendment Bill closes on Friday the 9th of January. Actually, that's an important one to do on because we don't want to lose the greyhound breed of dog, which could become extinct as a result. The Telecommunications Bill closes on Wednesday the 14th of January. The Telecommunications and Other Matters Amendment Bill closes on Wednesday the 14th of January. The Meteorologist Service Acquisitions and Policies Legislation Amendment Bill closes on Wednesday the 14th of January. The Education Training Systems Reform Amendment Bill closes on Wednesday the 14th of January. The International Treaties Examination of Agreements to Establish a Pacific Something closes on the 21st of January.
Pacific Something, true.
Yeah. Public Works Amendment Bill closes on Tuesday the 27th of January. The Emergency Management Bill number 2 closes on Tuesday the 3rd of February.
Oh, we'll be back by then.
Yeah, Parliament will be back by then.
Yeah.
But yes, so you're going to have to get out and get your submissions on there. So
but you can see though the names of these bills are like, they're not very appealing, eh? They're not very interesting names. It's like, guys, can we get more creative with the name writing?
I don't know. I mean, well, there's actually a section of the committee house as they debate the name of the bill.
Yes.
There is a section that can be on there about whether to rename the bill. And the pay equity one had some very interesting amendments done by Lawrence.
Oh, yes. See, that's the kind of stuff we need. We need funny names, meme names for bills.
Yeah. Or more accurately on what they do. Yeah. So, yes. So, thank you for those with the super chats.
Yes.
And all that sort of stuff that's going there. So next year, I'm hoping, subject to funding, to have 71 It's in the Ballot shows.
So how many shows?
71.
Around the country?
Yep, 71 electorates. That's my goal. That I will draw up a plan, and that will be one of the plans is covering all 71 electorates in formats.
Have you
and there'll probably be a couple of different plans that will go out. One of them will be one that you suggested as a hybrid approach with some remote, some in studio, depending where things have been done well. But yeah, having that as on the cards. So
okay. New super chat goal, guys. Whenever you donate money, Sam plays an AI generated piece of music, and I die to it. I get tortured by it. Because everyone knows that I don't like AI generated things. Yeah, he'll play this and I will be forced to listen to it.
But the outrage they cause still goes on.
I don't know. I mean, I did do one. I did do this one here. This is another one. It goes in. This goes on for 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Tech moves fast, so we check the
it burns my soul.
Special vote stacking like a tower of bricks. Playing in Romans, doing overtime tricks. Used to
I'm not sure. It might be copyrighted, Ryan.
Earlier, read the signs. 13 days before the big show starts. Get your name right where the roll book charts. 13 days.
I think this might be one that we need to play to remind people to sit there and get enrolled to vote.
Oh God! So yeah, if you want to see me die inside, give super chats and he will play an AI generated song. Or if you want to see me physically suffer, I will do push-ups.
See, Kiwi Skin actually likes the AI songs I get. I can get them very relevant to what's just happened. And I have to say, I thank Paul Barlow for actually putting me onto Sonu.
Yeah, I don't thank him because they're not going to listen to
No,
this.
but that does get around copyright things. So it means if we play that, we still get the advertising revenue from that being in our shows.
Okay, I think Kiwi Skit's telling us to wrap it up, and I agree. Yeah. It's time. We're like 40 minutes over time, and I did call it. I said we're going to go 40 minutes over time, and you said that would be 20.
Hey, I was expecting that to happen with the bill as well. It was just like I knew we had to motor on through and just keep the outrage going.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So if you haven't sat there and liked and subscribed to our channel, please do so. Current subscriber numbers are 693. If we can get up to 1,000, we can have ads in our videos.
Fantastic. Okay, with that, folks, I don't want to do a 3-hour show. So with that, folks, have a very good night. Have a very wonderful Christmas and happy holidays.
And we'll see you back on Sunday the 4th of January.
Bye.
Bye. Well, that's right.
Come on, Sam. You killed my
Thank you for watching The Order Paper, your express ticket to the New Zealand House of Representatives. Every episode, we unravel the complex world of legislation, debate, and democracy. From bills to select committees, we've got it all covered. From our team of political commentators who will dissect and explain what's happened so you can remain up to date on what's happened in the Aotearoa, New Zealand Parliament. To support our channel, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/it'sintheballot. The Order Paper podcast is brought to you by It's in the Ballot Production.